quiz, hotshot. There's a podcast in your ears. Once that podcast reaches 8 episodes, a guest is introduced. If that guest chooses the best action thriller movie, this podcast blows up. And by that we mean figuratively rather than literally. What do you do?
Idea.
What do you do?
I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. It's funny.
You
It
weren't
was good.
supposed to
That's a
laugh.
good intro.
Thanks. So, hi everyone. Welcome to episode 8 of Verbal Diorama. My name's Em, and today we are going to be talking about speed. And I will be introducing my special guest in a little bit. The format of this episode will be slightly different, but hopefully no less enjoyable because of my special guest. She's someone who's always been very supportive of this podcast and other podcasts as well. So please say hello to the lovely Kristin from Someone Watching the Show. Hi, Kristin.
Hello.
Hi. So thank you so much for coming on Verbal Diorama. And
Of course, I'm so excited.
well, I'm so excited too because obviously I've been listening to your show for a long time and you are officially the first ever guest on Verbal Diorama. How does that make you feel?
It is a great honor. I'm very excited.
Well, I'm really excited too. And so, yeah, the format is going to be a bit different because in order to accommodate a guest, obviously that means that A, I'm not going to be talking to myself for a change, which is so wonderful because because I obviously do a lot of that. Obviously, what I do normally do is I normally kind of say what I've been up to. So yeah, I'll just quickly run through that. Tomorrow, actually, I'm being interviewed by another podcast, which is going to be so much fun, by the guys from At the Flicks podcast. And also, I'm currently in the process of arranging a guest hosting slot on another show, hopefully going to be in July, but kind of date-wise, we haven't really agreed. I'm going to be recording the next episode, and I'll be having my second special guest on that episode, and I'll announce that person and the topic that we're going to be talking about at the end of this one. So, Kristin, have you been up to anything fun recently that you want to discuss?
Not anything super fun. We're about to have a couple fun things in the next few months. We've mostly been just at the regular grind. We saw Aladdin on Thursday, so that episode's coming out. So 5 days before this episode came out, our Aladdin episode will be out.
Wow.
So, yeah, but other than that, we're just, trying to get out there. We saw an early screening of Rocket Man, which was excellent.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, we're going to go see Florence and the Machine on June 6th. That's pretty cool.
Oh, I love Florence and the Machine. She's awesome. What I thought I'd do, if it's okay, because I would imagine that the majority of people who are listening to Verbal Diorama will probably already be listening to Someone Watching this show.
Maybe.
But I thought it might be quite nice just for people who maybe haven't listened to your show, just to kind of maybe get to know you a little bit better.
Sure.
Because hopefully then they will come and listen to your show.
Fingers crossed.
So basically, I was just kind of wondering, what made you want to get into podcasting?
Sure. So we started playing around with the idea in late 2017. Will and I wrote a book together. It's called Fairy Tale. There's a link to it on our website if you'd like to purchase it. Anybody? It's called Fairy Tale, and the website is soimwatching.com. I know we're going to plug at the end too, but just in case. And so we had been working on that for about 18 months, and we finished the book, and we were trying to figure out how we could produce more content, like, regularly, because Will is the creative, brain. He's the one that came up with the story and everything. I was just helping him finish the book, because he'd been working on it for quite a while before that. And then I got really, really, really into My Favorite Murder right around that time in 2017. And so I was like, they are just, I love them so much, but I was like, they're just talking most of the time. It's not, they're not doing anything super professional. It doesn't sound like a radio show. It doesn't sound like NPR. And I was like, we could easily do that. And Will was a little tentative at first. And I was like, look, we already do this in our lives. And I was like, I think we could do it. And so then my husband, Will, was like, you guys already are just nonstop shouting agreements at each other about movies and TV all the time. Can you point your voices at a mic? He was like, I'll edit it for you. I'll help you with all the like technical stuff. Just do something. And so we just started recording stuff, and then we put it out there in January of 2018. And I guess the rest, as they say, is history.
And it just kind of blew up from there, I guess, for you guys.
I mean, I wouldn't say we blew up, but we like, you know, we got a nice little community around us now. And that's been my favorite part, is actually like the friends that we've made on Twitter, that like we just talk about the stuff we love to talk about with them all the time. And it's, you know, that's what I want to do forever. Yeah, it is really cool, actually. And I think that generally there's a lot of negativity about Twitter, especially. But I've only found positive things on kind of the podcast community on Twitter. And so, yeah, I would completely agree with you that the community that's out there is really supportive and really friendly. And, yeah, just always happy to kind of have a chat about things. And yeah, I don't see the point in engaging on social media if you're doing it to be mean. I would much rather, you know, lift other people up and have them lift us up with them than cut people down. And like when I see something on Twitter that frustrates me, I just shout about it to my husband or to Will, and like that's it. So yeah, there's so much negativity in the world. It's just it's nice to have that little kind of area of positivity, and I think it is, and that's something that's I've kind of always found really helpful, is the fact that, you know, people, I was always really worried, and I put off starting the show for so long because I was worried about doing it on my own. And then I realised, well, hold on, I'm not alone. You know, yeah, I sit here on my own and I talk to myself like a weirdo. But generally, like, I know that there are people out there that if I've got a problem or I'm not sure or whatever, then I can talk to those people, you know, and I can get advice. And, you know, so you're not alone. And to me, that was like this kind of safety blanket that I needed, you know, doing I totally
a solo
agree.
podcast. I was going to say,
I don't know how you do it. I
don't know either.
I would never have been able to do it by myself. The fact that, I mean, Will and I have known each other for pretty much 21 years now. And we've been really close friends for like about 15 of those. And I couldn't do this if it wasn't with him. I couldn't even do this weekly with my husband because we bicker too much. It would not be fun to listen to.
I mean, that's one of the things I like so much about your show is that relationship that you have with Will, and you know, the fact that the banter that you guys have is just so, it's just so like enticing, and it kind of brings you in because it is like having a conversation with your friends about, you know, that particular show or film or whatever you're talking about. And that's, I think, why I like your show so much, is that it does feel like you're just kind of having a chat with friends. And I kind of listen to you and I'm kind of nodding along going, well, yeah, actually, you know, I agree. And, you know, I think I've messaged you a few times and just gone, you know, either I agree with you or I agree with Will or I agree with both of you. And and I think that's what makes it so brilliant, you know. So, I mean, how would you describe someone watching this show to someone who's never listened before, do you think?
Yeah, I would just say we sort of do a mix of TV, movies, old stuff that we love, new stuff that's coming out, a little bit of music sometimes. Will is really into music more than I am, and so he likes to talk about newer music sometimes. But yeah, we just basically pick a movie or pick a TV show or pick a topic, and then we just, you know, go to town. It's just kind of a free-form discussion. Usually we don't have a lot of notes for the most part. Will takes more notes than I do. I was taking a lot of notes at the beginning, and then I was like, I can figure it out. So I only really take notes when we're watching something new that I've never seen before. But yeah, we like to have chats about whatever pop culture is going on at the time. It's what we do in our personal lives anyway, and so we just, like my husband suggested, started pointing our mouths at a microphone and capturing it all for the public.
And that you do.
Yes, yeah, you know.
Obviously, I know you've got so many episodes, and what amazes me about you guys is that you're like pretty constantly like putting stuff out. Like every time I look at my phone, it's like a new episode, and I'm like, how do they do that? You know? It's like, I swear to God, it's like more than once a week.
So we release on Tuesdays and Fridays, and then we were just doing 3 TV shows for Patreon exclusives. We were doing Game of Thrones and 911 and Riverdale. So when we started out, I was like, 2 a week. I was like, just like at least to start with, I was like, 2 a week sounds good. That's nice, because it's good that we can do one older thing that's something that we love, and then one newer thing that's a little bit more topical and gets in the zeitgeist a little. And, then 18 months later, we haven't slowed down. And so at a certain point we were like, should we cut down to like once a week, or should we just keep going? And we decided to just keep going. So we are pretty busy. I mean, usually we try to go to the movies on Thursdays, with the new releases, so we can go see the new movie, and that can come out on our Tuesday episode. And then the Friday episodes usually are the ones that are not about something new, they're about something old.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, obviously for me, I would struggle to get something out like once a week, and that's why I've kind of stuck to now kind of every 2 weeks, because obviously the fact that I do it on my own obviously is a bit of a detriment to that, because I think if I did have someone who was like, editing and helping, then I probably could do it a bit more often. But yeah, it's always amazed me, like just the fact that not only do you get the episodes out, but they're always like, the quality is always really good. And sometimes you think, well, if someone's getting stuff out like that often, then the quality might dip. But for you guys, it never seems to. And I'm like, how? Like, how are they seeing these movies? And like,
that is all down to my husband. My husband will, if anybody wants to follow him on Twitter, it's @mightiestbeard. He is the one who edits all of our stuff. He's the one that puts in the little sound bites. He's the one that puts in trailer, audio and stuff. He is absolutely the reason that we sound as good as we do. There's no question about it. Will and I just have to sit down and talk shit at each other, like I said. And Will, my husband, is the one who makes it sound good.
Yeah. Do you have like a favourite episode or topic that you've covered that you are just like, that is like my favourite ever?
Well, okay, my answer is twofold, because one of my favorite episodes of ours recently was when we talked about Alita Battle Angel, because there's a moment in the middle of it.
Oh, sorry, I've just remembered. Yeah. I listened to that.
Yeah. There's a moment in the middle of it where we both just get hysterical, because our goal going into this was, we had seen so many podcasts about, people who just hate on movies all the time, where they're like, this is bad and I'll tell you why, and you're bad for liking it if you do. And we didn't want to do that. So one of our like big mantras the whole time has been, we want to like the things that we watch. So we try to go into everything hoping that we'll like it, and we try to find the good aspects and everything. Yeah. But we both just front to back hated Alita Battle Angel.
Yeah, I remember.
We thought it was so bad. And so there's this one moment in the middle where we have like reached the peak, and we are hysterical about it. Like, we cannot even keep going. We're both laughing. Will is like choking because he's laughing so hard. It was the first time I'd ever wished so hard that we were doing video, because I think I was the color of a legit, like, the Snow White apple. I was so red and so hot. I was crying. I was laughing so hard. So that is, I think, one of the most fun times I've had recording. But as for topics, I obviously love when we talk about Buffy. Those are my favorite episodes to like prep for, because I just get to rewatch Buffy.
Yeah. Well, any excuse to rewatch Buffy is a good excuse to rewatch Buffy, as far as I'm concerned. But I must admit, I remember listening to your Alita Battle Angel episode, because I don't see many movies that come out in the cinema, just because my cinema is quite a while away, and it's just not really convenient for where I live. But and I made a point of seeing Alita, because I thought, oh, this looks really good. And I remember I was like, Will and Kristin have got a Alita episode. I'm going to listen to that. And I was like listening to this, and I was like, oh my God, they hate this. And
it's unusual.
Anyone hate it. It's amazing. And to be fair, I think I messaged you, and I was like, oh well, I actually thought Alita was okay. And then it was like, yeah, I I kind of figured quite early on that you guys just were not in for that movie at all.
Look, it is honestly a to each their own kind of thing. If you liked it, that is fine. We are not manga people, so we thought maybe that could be part of it. Like, we don't like manga in general. It's not something, we don't read anime, we don't watch manga. That could definitely be part of it. But also, it just was such a weird interpretation of what I'm assuming is actually a really good manga and really good anime. I've heard people talk about it for years, and I'm just like, I don't understand how this is what you got from that. That was my thing. I don't know how that movie came out of what by all accounts is quality content.
Yeah. I think the important thing is it's like art is subjective, isn't it? So like, not everyone is going to like everything. But yeah, your episode just made me laugh so much. And it wasn't from a point of, laughing because, why do they not like Alita? It was just the reactions from you guys about Alita. And I was just like, this is amazing. This is the best. And yeah, that episode is phenomenal. Like, I just think it's great. And so, I mean, I'm glad that that's your favourite episode because it's definitely one of mine as well. Yeah. Just for the fact that you hated it so much and that you were all out on it. Even though, I mean, I thought the movie was fine. Like, I thought there were bits to enjoy, but yeah, it's in each their own situation, isn't it? And it obviously wasn't for you guys. But yeah. And I guess kind of, obviously you've been doing the show sort of for a while. Mm-hmm. Do you have like kind of an ultimate dream for someone watching the show? Like what do you want to eventually do sort of for it?
Yeah. I think I'd be lying if I didn't say I'd love for this to be a job. I write some stuff for the website too. I try to keep up with some, TV shows, and I try to write little, recaps or synopses for those and stuff every week. So, I mean, eventually I would love to just be able to have like a, like a pop culture situation be my job. That is obviously quite a ways away. And so I do still have a day job, but, we also, Will's got a lot of ideas for other books, and we're kind of working on that on the side and stuff. So there's a lot going on. Eventually we'd love to be able to work for ourselves and have kind of like a publishing / production company, because we've got some ideas about adapting fairy tale, and if we're able to do it by ourselves, so much the better. But there's, obviously all of that is a long road to hoe. So yeah, we've there's a lot going on. There's a lot we're thinking of doing. This year is kind of transitional because, we're like thinking of relocating houses and stuff. So there's a lot going on, but we are, always striving to be able to work at our own endeavors.
Yeah. And I think, anyone that does a podcast you've got to have kind of big dreams. I think that most people who kind of sit down every week and kind of record something, I think that they do it because they love to do it. They don't do it because it's like a chore or something. So from that, you naturally kind of have aspirations and dreams, and, regardless of how far in the future that might be.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things that this is one of those things that feels so random. It's almost sort of like, in the 90s, getting a record deal where it's just like so random, where it's like at any given moment somebody, quote unquote important could stumble upon the podcast. You never know.
Yeah.
Or we could do this for 5 more years and keep steady where we are. And it's just sort of, you have to do it for yourself, I think, before you do it for the, like, quote unquote fame and glory. And I think we just have so much fun doing it. And, like I've said a couple times already, we would be doing it anyway, even if we weren't recording it. So we may as well.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Like, anyone who's getting into podcasting, if they are doing it just to become, a famous podcaster, then that's kind of not the right mindset to have, because you need to love what you do. Mm-hmm. And that kind of goes for sort of everything in life, whether it's your day job or not. You still need to love what you do in order to get something out of it. Mm-hmm. So, I think that, the whole... becoming a podcaster is kind of the in thing that a lot of people are doing now, because I noticed like a lot of celebrities are going on having a podcast, and it's kind of like the thing now, which kind of makes it a bit harder for kind of, you know, the little guys, because it's
I agree.
You know, now that the celebrities are kind of coming into podcasting, it's like they're automatically going to get the recognition and the downloads and the awards and
the advertisers and stuff too.
Exactly, because they're celebrities, of course they are. So I think that kind of does make it a bit more difficult, but it also kind of, I think it kind of spurs you on a little bit more as well.
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
You know, I could be that big one day. You just don't know, but it would be something nice. But you kind of don't do it for that. You do it in spite of that.
Yeah,
kind
definitely.
of thing. So anyway, we are going to move on to Speed, but before we do, so when we talked about you coming on the show, I kind of gave you a list of kind of titles that I was interested in, and we originally kind of settled on Speed, and specifically because you said it was something that Will probably wouldn't be interested in talking about.
Yeah, I tried to. You gave me a list, and I was going through it, and I'll admit that probably about half of them we've already covered, or we have plans to cover in the future, and so I didn't want to pick something we were gonna do or had already done,
which is fair.
Yeah, and so then I was going through with specifically the mind to pick something Will wouldn't want to do because he's out of town this weekend and he wouldn't be able to join us, and so I was like, I don't remember him really caring for Speed, and he's not like a huge action movie person. So I was like, that's probably a good one. And so I sent him the list, and he was like, the only one I think that he said he wanted to watch was Cloud Atlas. He was like, I would watch that one because we really like the Wachowskis. And I was like, okay, cool, because Em already picked Speed, so I was like, good deal.
Oh, that is really good. Sorry, I just decided to click on Wikipedia. So, right, let's talk about Speed. So, what I'll do is I'll put like a little trailer bit in here anyway. So,
cool.
Right. So, we're not going to go through a synopsis like I normally do, because we're actually going to I thought it'd be good to kind of talk through the film, talk about parts of the plot, what we liked and what we didn't like, sort of that sort of thing. But I want to quickly just kind of go through the cast and the characters, because there are some fairly big names in this movie, and I'm only really going to talk about the main people because no one cares much about anyone else.
Well, I was going to say, I have some things to say about some of the other bus passengers, but we can get there.
Okay. Yeah, we can get there. So, obviously, the movie stars Keanu Reeves as Jack Traven. It's got Dennis Hopper as Howard Payne, Sandra Bullock as Annie Porter, and Jeff Daniels as Harry Temple. So I'm kind of they're kind of the main four players in the movie.
Yeah.
So Keanu Reeves, obviously previous to this, was mostly known for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, both of which are excellent. And I mean, he did loads back then, but kind of the main things, he was in Point Break. He was especially bad in Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Go find our episode from last October if you want to hear us talk about that.
But the thing is, I only remember that film fondly. But it's been a long time since I've seen it, so maybe I need to rewatch to fully appreciate how miscast he actually was in that film.
Yeah, he and Winona Ryder are not very well cast, but the movie as a whole is excellent.
I love the movie. I absolutely love it. I think Gary Oldman is just perfect in that film. I think as well the whole, because it's Francis Ford Coppola, isn't it? And
yes,
I love the way it looks and how gothic it looks, and
I will tell you why you love the way it looks, and it's because like 98% of the effects are in camera, so they're practical. Nothing is like an after effect.
Yeah, and I've always been a massive advocate for practical effects. I think practical effects on the whole just look so much better. But yeah, I really need to rewatch that because it's been so long. But I do recall visiting my cousins, and I think I was quite young, and we were watching that film, and I didn't quite understand the sex scenes because I was a little bit like, but he's a vampire and she's not a vampire. And my cousins were quite, I remember my cousins, because they were older, like trying to explain what was going on.
Well, so, now that you're such a fan of Buffy, do you get it now?
I get it. I mean,
the vampire sex scenes.
Yeah, I get. And the thing is Gary Oldman is so hot in that.
He's
film.
so hot in that movie. It's ridiculous.
I know. It's yeah, I'm definitely going to be. I've got that on DVD downstairs, so I'm definitely going to rewatch that soon, just to kind of catch myself up on obviously the film, but also the varied casting history of Keanu Reeves. He was also in My Own Private Idaho with River Phoenix.
I was going to mention that because he's very good in that. He's very well cast in that.
And they were really close friends. And then I read that River Phoenix actually died during the production of Speed. Mm-hmm. And so I think he had a little bit of time off because they were really close. Because obviously River Phoenix was... I do want to cover some of his movies because I was such a massive fan of him when I was younger, mainly because he was so good looking. And I'm not gonna lie about that. I was young and he was really this really good looking blonde, just all American boy. And I was head over heels for River Phoenix. And I remember when he died and the whole kind of Viper Room incident. And you know, I remember that Samantha Mathis, who was his girlfriend at the time, and because I remember all so vividly, and I was really young when that happened.
I was gonna say, I think I was only 9. Yeah,
I was probably just a little bit older than that. But yeah, I remember it so vividly. And I often wonder with people like River Phoenix, if they lived, like if he was still around, like what he would be doing today. And I kind of feel like he would be like of the caliber of, you know, the Leonardo DiCaprio kind of caliber of literally great in pretty much everything. And I kind of feel like he'd have loads of Oscars and he'd just be, I think
Leonardo DiCaprio only has the one, so who knows?
But he was nominated quite a few times.
He was,
but yeah, I kind of feel like he would literally be up there. But yeah, I often kind of feel quite sad when I think of like River Phoenix and how, you know, he died so young, and I think he was only 27. I think.
Yeah, he was quite young.
So yeah,
and I was gonna say I'll gladly come back on if you want to talk about Stand By Me, because that is my favorite movie of all time.
Is it really?
It really is. Yeah.
Wow. Do you know what? I've not seen that in such a long time. That's another one I need to rewatch because it's been years and years since I've seen Stand By Me. But yeah. I definitely do want to do something for River Phoenix. Just, I don't know, I might just pick like a couple of films or something just to kind of do a little something for him. But anyway, I kind of feel like I've gone off on a tangent. But yeah, so obviously losing your close friend during, you know, making a movie is not going to be particularly easy. I think that, you know, I think Keanu Reeves he's amazing in this film. I think he's just phenomenal. I think he cements himself as this action star.
Absolutely.
Potential. I think he's wonderful. But I want to talk a little bit about Sandra Bullock, especially because this was kind of... She'd been in Demolition Man a couple of years prior, and I know she'd been in small roles, but she was just, I think, standout brilliant in this film. I think she's wonderful. I remember when this came out, I had the biggest crush on Keanu Reeves because who wouldn't? But I wanted to be Sandra Bullock, and I think I even cut my hair like her. And she was like massive inspiration for me, like when I was younger, and I wanted to look like her because I've got like brown hair like her, and I was just like, I want to be Sandra Bullock. And I remember feeling like that for a long time, that I wanted, and then I probably wanted to be Rachel from Friends. So
yeah, those both kind of run in tandem. They were very, very, you know, on the upward swing at the same time.
Yeah. But yeah, so this was kind of her breakout role, and she's kind of, I mean, her career is just kind of gone from strength to strength, and she's kind of, I kind of feel like she's like America's sweetheart. Like,
she definitely, I would say she's moving to a different, section of her career right now, but for, the mid to late 90s, absolutely, she was America's sweetheart. It was like her and Jennifer Aniston, absolutely.
Yeah, very much. It's quite weird that they've kind of been in quite tandem with each other, because Sandra Bullock did do quite a few kind of romantic comedies, and she kind of branched out to try and do different things. And Jennifer Aniston's always someone who I find really fascinating, because she did the Rachel roles, like the romantic comedy roles, and then she kind of branched out into more interesting kind of, I'm trying to remember the name of the film that I really love that she's in. It's where...
Was it The Good Girl?
The Good Girl, yeah. And I was blown away. I was like, I can't believe this is Rachel from Friends. She's outstanding.
That's one of my favorite female performances ever.
I just wouldn't imagine. And I know she's a good actress because I think she's proven she's good, but I could never imagine at that time her coming out with something like that after being known as Rachel from Friends. And yeah, the other thing that I really like is, obviously, I really love her in Horrible Bosses.
I haven't actually seen that, but I've seen clips of her from it.
I mean, she's such a sexual predator. I mean, if that was a man, like, it would be seen as like a massive issue. But because she's a woman in the film, the film kind of feels like it can get away with the fact that she's a bit of a sexual predator. Actually, she's a lot of a sexual predator. But I love that she can convincingly do that. That, she is that good that you genuinely believe that she is a deviant. It's quite incredible. Anyway, kind of need to move away from Jennifer Aniston because this isn't about her.
Back to Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, but to me, Sandra Bullock is just. I just kind of feel like I just love her so much. I don't think she's done anything that I would say I dislike actively. Do you kind of feel the same? Can you think of something that she's done that? Because I can't.
There's some things that aren't as good as other things. Like, what's that one called? That's like kind of.
Did she win a Razzie or something?
Yeah, for All About Steve, that one with Bradley Cooper. But it was the same year that she won the Oscar for The Blind Side. So it's kind of, and the thing though about her is that she's such a good sport because she showed up in person to accept her Razzie. So
yeah, and that's why she's so wonderful, because she's so self-deprecating that she's just like, yeah, I'll turn up for my Razzie, it's fine. And that's why she's America's sweetheart. She's like the world's sweetheart. She can do no wrong. I think she's wonderful. I want to talk a little bit about Dennis Hopper, because I mean, I didn't even know his career was so long, and I feel like an idiot because I did some research, just some sort of quick research on what we were going to talk about, and I was like, Dennis Hopper, yeah, he's been in Super Mario Brothers, I'm sure he's had a career that's maybe 10 or 20 years long, and I was like, oh my god, he started in the 50s, and I was like, he acted alongside James Dean, and I'm like, how did I miss this? Like, how did I not know about Dennis Hopper? I literally feel like an idiot. I'm not going to lie.
I think he's done a lot of things that I don't love. He did a lot of stuff with David Lynch, and I don't love David Lynch. And he did Easy Rider, and I don't really like Easy Rider. And so there's like a lot of stuff that I didn't really follow his career, but I've like always known who he was. I think he's one of those people. Yeah.
I'm obviously a bit of a naive British idiot, because I just genuinely, it surprised me that his career was that long. And obviously, I mentioned Super Mario Brothers. That was kind of a joke, but it also kind of wasn't, because that was really the first thing that I ever saw him in, was Super Mario Brothers. And to be honest, I'm not going to lie, I am going to have it on the podcast at some point. It's on my list, because when I was a child, me and my brother pretty much watched 2 films continuously. One of them was Disney's Aladdin.
Okay.
Which is another reason why I'm kind of a little bit like, do I want to watch this remake? Do I not? but I probably will because I love the original so much.
Yeah.
And the other one was Super Mario Brothers. And I'm sure my parents really hated us when we were children. Because the thing is, I remember Super Mario Brothers so fondly because I was so young. And I played the video games all the time. But I've not seen it since then. And I know that a lot of people genuinely hate that movie and think it's literally the most rubbish movie in the world. But for me, I have such a fondness for it. And I have a fondness for Bob Hoskins.
I do love Bob Hoskins.
And, you know, obviously someone who I talked about quite a lot in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, because he was such a wonderful actor and came across as a wonderful person. And Bob Hoskins is in that movie. And obviously, I've just mentioned Samantha Mathis, you know, who was River Phoenix's girlfriend. She was in that movie. And so I kind of feel like all of these like tangents, all kind of everything comes to Super Mario Brothers for me. And
all roads lead back to Super Mario Brothers.
And the thing is I know everyone hates it. And part of me is so scared to watch it because I know being, you know, a woman in my 30s who's probably not seen this movie for like 20 plus years is probably going to go, oh my God, this is the worst movie ever. And I feel like it's going to ruin my whole childhood because I love it. I loved it so much back then.
Yeah.
So I'm scared. I'm actually scared to watch it again because I know I'm going to hate it. And I don't want to. But yeah, the whole Dennis Hopper with the lizard tongue and yeah, see that didn't really bother me as a kid. I just thought it was, I guess I thought it was cool, but I think that movie is probably quite problematic nowadays.
Oh, I'm sure. So many things that I liked when I was a child are problematic now, and you kind of have to, I mean, honestly, and this is bringing it back full circle in a different way, but sometimes I watch Buffy and I'm like, oh man, Xander's kind of an incel, isn't he?
Oh
and
my God,
he like,
so is.
It's really, it's like upsetting, but you kind of, what I do is I just sort of like turn that side of my brain off. And it reminds me of this headline from The Onion where it was like, woman puts away feminist ideals so she can enjoy 30 goddamn minutes of frivolous TV, and it's like she's watching Say Yes to the Dress or something. And it's like, so I definitely have to turn the like activist-y part of my brain off when I watch some old things, because I'm like, this is just a fun thing from my childhood. I'm allowed to still like it.
Yeah. No, I completely understand that, because I do have a tendency to watch things that I loved in the past, and to be fair, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, and nowadays me would just be appalled by, you know, how they treat women, and you know, the fact that movies don't pass the Bechdel test, and just things like that. But sometimes you do have to just kind of forgive it, because you have that connection to it. It kind of takes you back to your childhood, and it is really difficult. It is really difficult to switch off that part of your brain that then you were like, well, it doesn't matter that the women are just the kitchen slaves. Yeah. You know, it's like...
Well, and that's the thing, too. You know, we actually talk a decent amount about the Bechdel test because I think it's a really good jumping off point, but I don't think it's like the end-all be-all because, you know, actually, technically... I guess they're not conversations of substance, but Speed technically passes the Bechdel test.
Yeah.
However, you know, we just did an episode a couple weeks ago about Inglourious Bastards, which is one of both of our favorite movies, and it does not pass the Bechdel test. Yeah. However, it does have two of the strongest female characters in, you know, the last decade or so. Yeah. But they don't share screen time. And so it's like, that doesn't mean that it's like doesn't have like feminist things to say. And so I feel like you can use the Bechdel test as a jumping off point, but I think it shouldn't be the end-all be-all, because there are movies with excellent female characters, and just because they don't share screen time doesn't mean that the movie is sexist. And I think that's an important thing that people don't take the intuitive leap all the way to the end of it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that if movies pass the Bechdel test, then that's great. But I think that we need to talk more about our female characters, about their arcs, and not just the fact that are they named and are they talking to another female character that's, you know, not about a man. It's about do they have a well-rounded character? You know, do they have a good arc? Is that arc satisfactory? You know,
right?
And I think that there's a new test that I think came out in recent years based on the lead female character in Pacific Rim, the Makomori test.
Yeah.
Which is more kind of along those lines of does she have a satisfactory arc? Did she need a man to fulfill that arc? You know, and obviously I think Makomori is one of the greatest female characters in, you know, recent sort of science fiction. And it pained me, spoilers for Pacific Rim Uprising. Have you seen Pacific Rim Uprising, by the way?
I have, yes. We were disappointed.
It pained me so much that they killed her off.
Yeah.
It actually upset me. I was like, she is the greatest character from the first movie, and you have killed her.
And it's also such a slap in the face to Rinko Kikuchi, who is so good.
She's excellent.
So
and I was
good.
like, why would you have her as the action star in your first movie and then put her in a suit and kill her off in a helicopter? I mean, at least give her a dignified death where she's, you know,
goes out fighting or something.
Yes!
Exactly.
Oh, honestly, that I really hated Pacific Rim Uprising just for the fact that they killed off Makomori. And the sad thing was, I thought John Boyega was actually really good in that movie, and I actually really like John Boyega just generally. I think he's great. Have you seen Attack the Block?
Not yet. No, it's on my list.
It's fantastic, and I think it's the first movie that he did. It's outstanding. I absolutely love it. I think the creatures are great in it. It looks fantastic. It's very typically British. It's obviously set in like a high-rise block in London. It's obviously very specific to sort of those areas of London. And the characters are great. It stars the current Doctor Who, Jodie Whittaker.
Oh, nice.
And I mean, John Boyega, it's his first role. I won't say anything about the character that he plays, but he's so great in that film. And it was like, you see him in that film and you're like, that kid is destined for something big. And then a couple of years later, he got Star Wars, and it's like, oh my God, you know, John Boyega is going somewhere.
It feels very similar to, we watched the first season of Black Mirror well after it came out, but Daniel Kaluuya is in season 1.
Oh, he's great.
And I was watching that, and it was before Get Out came out, and I was like, this guy is going places. And then they, like, Get Out came out, and I was like, oh yeah. I was like, this guy's going places, and now he's been in Widows, and, like, all kind, and, you know, Avengers and stuff, and I'm just like, Daniel Kaluuya is so good. I just love it.
Do you know what? Just on Daniel Kaluuya, and I know we're going off on a tangent again, and I'm really sorry, everyone, but this is going to happen. I'm sorry. Daniel Kaluuya was in a really great BBC TV show that it was a bit infamous here because it came out. It was absolutely outstanding. Like, it's a supernatural TV show called The Fades, and it also stars, the actor's name escapes me, but the guy who plays Fitz in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, sure. It's like Ian DeCoster or something like that?
Yeah. So it stars him and Daniel Kaluuya, and it's like a supernatural TV show. It, I can't remember exactly the award it won, but it basically won a massive TV award over here, and then it got cancelled.
Oh, man.
And everyone was like, why have you cancelled The Fades? It's honestly wonderful. It's nothing like anything that I'd ever seen kind of up to that point. I would highly recommend if anyone is looking for a TV show. It's quite a few years old. It's only got one season, so it's not very long, but it's called The Fades. And
it's got so many people in it. I'm looking it up right now. It's got Natalie Dormer, who played Marjorie on Game of Thrones. It's got Tom Ellis, who plays Lucifer. It's got Joe Dempsey, who played Gendry on Game of Thrones. Yep.
It's brilliant. Honestly, it's absolutely outstanding. And the fact that the BBC cancelled it just as it won, I can't remember the award. The award it won escaped me, but it was one of the biggest awards of the year.
BAFTA? It won a BAFTA.
BAFTA. There you go. It won a BAFTA, and then they cancelled it. And it's like, but why? It's just won a BAFTA. It's a BAFTA award-winning show. Why would you cancel it? But anyway, yeah. So
back to speed. Let's talk about Jeff Daniels.
Yes. We haven't even talked about Jeff Daniels.
Look, I was going to say, we're going to go off on tangents because there's so many character actors in this movie that we haven't even talked about yet. So it's like, we're going to go off on tangents. But the main thrust of the episode is speed, but we're going to talk about lots of other stuff.
Yeah, so I think I made a point like several episodes ago of one of my episodes being the longest episode ever, and then it turned out to be the shortest, and I was a bit embarrassed. But I can safely say this is going to be the longest episode ever, so that's great. So yeah, Jeff Daniels. Obviously, I won't say much about Jeff Daniels because I want to actually get into Speed at some point. But he obviously plays Harry Temple. The same year that this came out, he played another famous Harry. He was Harry Dunn in Dumb and Dumber, which is a film that I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but I don't have a lot of time for Dumb and Dumber. I think it's okay, but I don't think it's like the greatest comedy ever made, which a lot of people do. And
speaking as the resident dumb American, I will admit to never having seen it, and I think I'm too old now. Like, I don't think it would hit me the right way, so I don't have plans to ever watch it in my life.
I think because it's a very kind of typical sort of that time, because it's like a Farrelly Brothers movie, and the Farrelly Brothers were obviously known for their kind of slapstick, sort of gross out humour. And to be honest, the only film of theirs that I really, really loved was There's Something About Mary. So
I haven't seen that either.
Really?
I'm not a fan of that kind of comedy, and it was like I was too young when those things came out, so I wasn't able to see them at the time, and then by the time I was old enough to see them, I had no interest, and so I've just never, I'm 33 now, I don't know that there's a time for me anymore to watch There's Something About Mary.
I kind of feel like, again, it's a bit of its time,
in
a sense that I don't know. I've not seen it in such a long time, but I kind of feel like because obviously, you know, Cameron Diaz is literally the most beautiful woman in the world, and she's essentially being stalked by all of these different men. I kind of feel like it might not kind of come across very well nowadays.
No, I'm sure not.
But yeah, so I kind of feel like if you watched it now, you might just completely hate it.
And that's the thing is, I don't want to be that person at the party who's like, that movie's bad and so are you. So it's like, I would rather just be like, no, I've never seen it, I know all the funny parts, it's fine, I get it.
I mean, the funny parts are reasonably funny, but you know, the funniest part is, you know, when he gets his thing trapped in a zip. I mean, that's the level of humour we're talking about. So but yeah, that's very similar for Dumb and Dumber. It's that sort of stupid humour, and to be honest, I mean, I don't know, I guess if I'm thinking of like comedy films from that sort of era, I'd much prefer like something like Wayne's World, or
totally,
you know,
and that humor is about the humor is about the jokes. It's not about like,
exactly,
it's not gross out humor, it's about the joke. And it's also very Canadian, where like the Farrelly Brothers I think are from California, so it's way different.
I mean, it's. I wouldn't say that Dumb and Dumber Jeff Daniels is my favourite Jeff Daniels. I would say that probably Speed Jeff Daniels is my favourite Jeff Daniels. But
I don't know. That's a tough one for me because I'm thinking of like. Well, I guess he's pretty in terms of endearment, so I guess it's not my favorite Jeff Daniels. But there's like Fly Away Home Jeff Daniels. There's Newsroom Jeff Daniels. There's so much Jeff Daniels to choose from.
I mean, Fly Away Home Jeff Daniels is. Yeah, he is quite good in that, actually. Yeah.
I love Jeff Daniels. He's one of my favorites. I think he's great all the time.
Yeah, he is pretty much a kind of quality over quantity kind of guy, but not Dumb and Dumber or the second Dumb and Dumber, which, to be fair, I never watched anyway, because I was like, I'm not watching another Dumb and Dumber movie. You think I'm dumb?
No,
oh my God, I'm not paying for that. Anyway, so let's move on. We won't talk. There's obviously loads of people in the cast who are, you know, character actors and other people. We can talk about them sort of when we talk about the movie sort of as a whole.
Oh, definitely.
But so it was directed by Jan de Bont, who was the cinematographer for Die Hard, which is like one of the greatest movies ever made. It was his directorial debut. Interestingly. And I know we've talked about Buffy a little bit, but we're going to talk about a little bit of Buffy again, because it was written by Graham Yost, but he claims that 98.9% of the dialogue was rewritten by one Joss Whedon.
Yep.
Joss Whedon remains uncredited on this movie, because I believe of Writers Guild of America, of the rules that they have in place as to who gets credited and who does not. But Yoss's original script was essentially Die Hard on a bus. And in this version of the script, all the scenes took place on the bus. So the whole kind of 2-hour movie was on a bus. And it was pitched to Paramount, and they passed on it because they were like, well, an audience isn't going to want to see 2 hours of Die Hard on a bus. I mean, I really like Die Hard, but I kind of really like it because it's not just like in one room of like Nakatomi Plaza. It's like the whole
building,
floor. Yeah. So, so then the idea was mooted to 20th Century Fox, and they basically agreed to do it as long as there were other scenes that weren't on a bus. So it was actually Jan de Bont, the director, who suggested the elevator scene because he had an experience with an elevator. I'm calling it an elevator, by the way, but we would call it a lift.
A lift,
but,
yeah.
Yeah. I purposefully called it an elevator because obviously I'm talking to you and I didn't know if you knew what a lift was.
I do. I do watch a lot of British TV and movies and stuff, so for a really long time in my life, my parents were very open with letting me watch lots of things and read whatever I wanted, so I know things that I'll say in common conversation here in America, and people will be like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, that's not universal, so I'm there with it.
Okay. Oh no, that's really cool. It's just that because it was kind of the other way for me, because when I was growing up we had a lot of American TV shows on in the house. Yeah. So it was a lot of like Saved by the Bell, The Cosby Show, obviously let's not talk about Cosby Show.
Not anymore.
But Fresh Prince.
Yeah.
So when I was younger, I used to say like a lot of American words, and my mum used to hate it because she was like, that's not the right way to say it. You know, I think for a long time I used to say aluminum instead of aluminium because obviously we say aluminium.
Yeah.
My mother was never very happy with the American influence in our household. But, so where were we? I don't even remember. Elevators. Yes. So Joss Whedon was brought in to help with the dialogue, and specifically Jack's character, once Keanu Reeves was attached, because they wanted... I think he was kind of originally a bit of a goofball, and they kind of wanted to rewrite it so that he would be like a bit more kind of stoic, maybe.
Like an action star?
I mean, yeah, a little bit more of like a cop. Like he wants to do the right thing, you know, he wants to help these people. He'll, you know, throw in a one-liner here or now, which he does quite a lot, and that's very typical Joss Whedon. But yeah, so and Whedon also introduced, spoiler alert for anyone who's not seen Speed, but he also introduced the death of Harry. Because up until that point, for Graham Yoss's original script, Harry was actually the villain. Yeah.
Gross.
He was going to be the villain. So he was going to be the actual guy behind the bomb.
Don't like that.
Howard Payne didn't exist. And actually, they kind of thought the same as you, that this sounds terrible.
Yeah, roll bad.
Harry was then rewritten to be a completely innocent person who was obviously still Jack's partner, still, you know, helped Jack out with the crime, but unfortunately got caught up in Payne's deranged bomb in his house. Who puts a bomb in your own house? I mean, anyway. But he's obviously one step ahead every single time. And but originally Harry was going to be the bad guy, which I think would have been atrocious.
Yeah, real bad. Real bad.
Yeah. So I'm really glad that they changed that. So obviously I realise that we're quite long, but we're going to talk about Speed now because this is kind of why we're here. We're an hour in, and now we're going to talk about Speed. I guess I just kind of wanted to firstly kind of say what are your overall kind of... Do you remember watching Speed for the first time, and do you remember how it made you feel when you first watched it?
I don't think I remember the first time I watched it. This is definitely a movie that I've seen over a dozen times, probably like into the 20s and 30s. It's one of those ones that whenever it's on TV, we just kind of watch it. But I like action movies more than Will does, and so and I really like this genre, like, or this time period for action movies, because like we were talking about with Dracula, everything's very practical. There's, because it was before computer effects were like a big thing. And so it's like this and the Terminator movies, and the early Terminator movie, which even had some effects, but still a lot of it's practical. And then Die Hard, like we talked about, it's like these kind of action movies are so much fun for me. And also, they come from a time in movie making where budgets didn't need to be $200 million for an action movie. And I like miss that simple time where like movies like this don't get made anymore because it's too simple of an idea.
Yeah.
And it bums me out. And so this is like probably my favorite era of action movies, is like the early to mid 90s. There's just something about them that every time I watch them again, they're so charming.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, obviously I agree with practical effects. I think this movie the effects are so great. Obviously all the explosions are, I mean, they're massive. They're not small explosions. They are huge.
Yeah.
And the practical stunts and everything, it still astonishes me to this day that this movie was made for $30 million. And that's nothing. Like,
no, that's like an indie movie budget at this point.
Yeah.
At this point in time, and it's like for this movie to be still so much in the cultural consciousness. What is it? 25 years later, that's kind of insane. And it's like because it launched two like huge careers, even though Keanu Reeves had been doing stuff beforehand, but this launched him into a different stratosphere, and it launched Sandra Bullock, and it's sort of very interesting the way the movie making business has changed. And in some ways it's really for the better, because with streaming and everything, I think more small things are able to get to a wider audience. But it's also, I miss these type of movies where I want to say the last movie that came out that's the most like this is Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt.
I love that.
Because that was a pretty medium budget at the time, medium for a Tom Cruise movie probably, but that is such a solid movie and such a good plot and such good acting. And it's like, that movie made me feel like Speed, like it was just very the same sensibilities, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, I cannot underestimate how much I love Edge of Tomorrow.
It's excellent.
I think it pains me actually that movie didn't do so well. Because I mean, you've got Tom Cruise in the movie, and Tom Cruise is someone who I have a bit of a contentious relationship with Tom Cruise.
Oh, same. The Scientology is hard to get past.
Yeah. I mean, sort of taking away sort of his personal life, which I don't understand all of that. But his choice of movies, I kind of feel like a lot of the time, Tom Cruise is just playing Tom Cruise. And it's like he's become the character that he's playing. And pretty much in every movie that stars Tom Cruise, apart from a couple of exceptions, like I think Tom Cruise is great when he's playing against type. I think he's great in Interview with a Vampire. Because that movie, it was something that you would think, well, Tom Cruise will never do that. He won't be a good Lestat. And even Anne Rice said, I don't like the fact that Tom Cruise has been cast. He's going to be rubbish. And she had to apologise after she saw the movie because he was so good. And I like the Mission Impossible movies, but I kind of feel like he knows what he can do. So he knows that he can be the action star. He can do the stunts. He can run from building to building. And, overall, I think he plays to his strengths. But I like Tom Cruise when he doesn't play to his strengths. I like Tom Cruise to stretch himself. And Edge of Tomorrow, I think, is my favourite Tom Cruise.
I was going to say, I have read an interview where he specifically chose that role because it was against type. Because he'd never... It had been so long since he played somebody who wasn't good at their job. Yeah. And so it's like, that's like my favorite part.
Yeah. But even like, I don't know if you've seen Tropic Thunder.
Yes,
I think
I have.
Yeah. Even that, his role in Tropic Thunder is one of my favourite things about Tropic Thunder. And the fact that he's like this balding, fat, middle-aged guy who's like barking orders and like dancing to, I can't even remember what the song is, and like grinding down low to this song. And I'm like, this is amazing. I want more of this Tom Cruise. Like when he plays against type, he does so well. And I'm like, Tom, like, do yourself a favour. Like, just choose roles that stretch you, because he's good. He's great in Edge of Tomorrow. I think he's wonderful. And I think Emily Blunt is, I love her. I genuinely love her.
Everybody
like,
does. She's the best.
I feel like if, like, her and John Krasinski, I just want to live with them. I want to like share my life with both of them, because I love her, I love him, I love them together, I love them apart. Emily Blunt, I think she's the most wonderful thing that Britain has ever done.
I was going to say, I also, for an American, I'm pretty confident that of the people that I know, I've liked her longer than all of them, because before The Devil Wears Prada came out, when I was in college, I was quite the movie snob. I would go to the art house cinema like every weekend and see whatever they were playing, and they showed this movie called My Summer of Love, which was a British movie, and I've been a fan of her since I saw that movie, and I've followed her since I saw that movie, which came out before The Devil Wears Prada. So
see, I've not even seen that.
That's like a nice, I've got a nice little, brushing my shoulder off where I'm like, yeah, oh, you like The Devil Wears Prada? Okay, talk to me later.
Oh my God, I think you've just cemented yourself as literally Emily Blunt's biggest fan.
I do, I love her. I love her in everything I've seen her in. I haven't seen everything she's done, but she's luminous. I just love her.
I think, yeah, I've not seen The Young Victoria.
I have.
That's one that I really want to, because I love period drama, and I'm like, period drama and Emily Blunt, I'm like, that is for me.
Yeah, she's very good in it.
Yeah, I think she's the best thing in Edge of Tomorrow by far. I mean, Tom Cruise is great, but she's also great. The story's great. Yeah, Edge of Tomorrow. I can completely understand why you'd have that kind of, you'd think kind of the same sort of thing, like how you feel about Speed, because whenever I watch Speed, I've seen it quite a few times. And I remember, so I don't remember specifically watching it when I was younger, but I remember loving it, like consistently loving it. And every single time I watch it, I feel like I'm on the edge of my seat every single time. And it's the most bizarre experience, because I know what's going to happen. Like, I know this movie, I know what they're going to say, and I know what's going to happen. I know that, Harry's going to walk into the house and the bomb's going to go off. I know all of these things.
Every single time you're like, Carrie, don't go in the house. Like,
I know
it's cool. And I watched it with my husband last night, and I had to pull up something on my phone to look at it, because I was like, I hate this part. It makes me so sad.
Because, and it's very rare that a movie will do that, because once you've seen a movie, you're kind of like, well, I know the plot, you know, I know the twist, I know what's going to happen now, so it's not going to surprise me. But Speed has this energy about it, and it has this kind of way of sucking you right in. So it's like, it feels like you're watching it again for the first time, and I don't know how it does that. Because, I mean, it is a pretty kind of standard action movie, in a sense that, the movie starts, you're introduced to your villain, essentially, but it seems to kind of grab your attention straight away, and it doesn't kind of relent. It's just like consistently, like, bang 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 on the screen, like, this is happening, and you're just transfixed.
Yeah, I think part of it is because of Jan de Bont, because he was a cinematographer, so I think he knows how to frame a movie so that it looks right. He knows how to, get from one place to the next properly. He knows how to really make it look like it needs to look. And then I think part of it is honestly Joss Whedon. The quippy dialogue can take you through so much, and can make you feel like you're running at a clip, even if things are going a little slower than you think they are. I think both those things were, especially working in tandem, I think are really good. And then there's the fact that, honestly, the story is pretty straightforward. Like, there's nothing twisty and weird. You're coming to all the information when you need to come to it. It's just, it's a masterfully made action movie. Especially in this day and age where so many action movies are super twisty and they don't need to be. And it's sort of like, I'm so tired of going to movies where there's a twist. I just want to watch a friggin' movie sometimes, you know? I just want to go and get lost in like a dumb, good action movie. And like I said, they don't really do that anymore. So this is always so refreshing to go back and watch.
Yeah. And I kind of feel like as well with a lot of action movies, you tend to find that they'll put random action scenes in for no reason.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, the audience might be getting a bit bored now. Let's just blow something up, you know? And it's like, but with Speed, you kind of feel like everything that happens is kind of warranted. You know, you kind of get the, you know, if we got, well, we'll go through the plot, sort of plot points kind of thing. And we can talk about specific things that happen in certain scenes, but obviously I kind of feel like, you know, that when you've got the titles and it's kind of panning down the building, because I remember watching that at first going, what is that? Yeah. It's like you're just like panning down, and it's like, but it's so effective because it highlights firstly kind of how big this building is. You know, that it's a really tall building because it's kind of panning down each floor, sort of right the way to like basement level. And it does a really good job of like ramping up the tension just kind of from that one kind of panning shot all the way down, because you're kind of going lower and lower and you realise that you're going lower and it's like, but why are we going lower? Like what's... And
like
then
what's actually happening? You can't decide what's actually happening when you're until you actually get the people in the elevator and you're like, uh-oh, that doesn't seem good. And like after Payne stabs the security guard with the screwdriver, which is always disgusting.
Oh, it's horrible.
You're like, oh, these people in the elevator are not going to be okay.
Yeah. And then you kind of realise like what's going on, like, oh, you know, this guy is actually our villain, and he's so ruthless. He's willing to, you know, kill an innocent security guard just so that he can obviously. I mean, I don't think we need to talk about how he got the explosives on the elevator. I don't think we need to go there.
No,
but the fact that the movie makes it quite clear that this is a man who is incredibly smart.
Oh yeah,
and always one step ahead of Jack. And can pretty much predict what's going to happen. And that's, unfortunately, how Harry meets his end, is that he knows that they're going to find out who he is, and he knows they're going to go to the house. But the film does a great job, sort of, in these kind of first opening minutes of really kind of basically ramping up the tension and introducing this person. And it's clear from the get-go that he's our bad guy. And I really like... I think the whole scenes with the elevator itself, sort of when it actually blows, frightens the actual life out of me, because I don't like going. I'm one of these people, because, you know, I like to walk places. I've got a Fitbit, so I like to collect my steps.
Sure.
So I'm one of these people. If I'm going up a building, I'll use the stairs, because
to the 33rd floor.
Well, I mean. I live in the middle of England. We don't really have 33rd
That's true.
floors
And this is like a Los Angeles high-rise. Yeah, it makes sense.
Exactly. But, I mean, obviously, if I was going up a massive building like this, I probably would have to. But generally, I will always choose to take the stairs, purely because I don't like the idea of being trapped in a box that's going up and down. And it might be this movie that actually has kind of put this in my head. I'm not sure. But, yeah, the whole kind of, you know, when it does actually blow and they fall, it gives me genuine fear.
Yeah, same.
Until the kind of emergency brakes, you know, come into force. It gives me such fear. and genuinely, even like talking about it right now, it's kind of bringing it all back.
Yeah, there's a lot of anxiety in that opening elevator scene, because not only is the elevator full, it's full of people who you get the sense don't all like each other, which is another, you know, level of anxiety. And then it starts falling, which I don't like falling. I can't go on flume rides at theme parks.
Me neither.
So I don't like falling. I like free falling. I don't like enclosed spaces. I don't like people I don't like. So there's like...
I thought you were going to say, I don't like people.
There's like 4 layers of anxiety every time the scene comes on, because you're like, there's so many parts of this that I hate. You know, I don't like going to work, so that's another one. You know, they're all on their way to work. There's a lot, and and you do feel it. It does get very visceral, the feeling of the fear and the anxiety of these people in the elevator.
Yeah, and I think it does do a great job of like say building up that tension and obviously introducing our hero with sort of a wonderful kind of slow motion, which I still don't understand why they do the slow motion kind of car jumping over a hill, but it's cool. I dig it. But yeah, I really love the kind of introduction of them, and I love the banter between Jack and Harry.
Yep.
And when they're having like a meeting about what are they going to do to get these people out, and Jack, and obviously this is where Joss Whedon is just like on fire because it's just like quip,
of course,
and it's dynamite stuff. And then obviously as part of that we get the kind of pop quiz hotshot introduction sort of from Harry, and they talk about I think this is when they talk about what the hostage situation.
Shoot the hostage.
And Jack's just like really blasé and like, yeah, shoot the hostage. And it's like, well, if you shoot the hostage, then he hasn't got any leverage, and therefore he's got nowhere to go. And at the time, I remember watching it the first time and thinking, he's a madman. Why would he shoot an innocent hostage?
Well, I mean, I don't think the implication is kill the hostage. I think
no, I know.
It's like it's what he does to Harry, like shoot the hostage in the leg, so he can't keep his leverage.
Yeah,
which is smart, but also pretty cold-blooded.
It is. That's the thing. It is actually a really smart thing, but outwardly, it does kind of feel a little bit. Well, that's kind of the wrong thing to do. You know, your hostage is innocent, but actually, if you think about it, it is the right thing to do. You know, you take away the perpetrator's leverage. You make it so that they can't use that hostage, and so then you manage to obviously catch them, which is sound. And it is actually what happens with Harry, and I think that's really good because I kind of feel like that it brings that conversation full circle, and I kind of like it when movies pay things off.
Oh, absolutely.
But pay them off in quick succession, because sometimes if a character says or does something at the start of the film and then it pays it off right at the end, and I've had to sit there for 2 hours waiting for it to be paid off, I get a little bit bored. So I kind of like that they do that sort of throughout the film.
Yeah, I agree.
With the whole kind of
I agree, because he pays it off right away when he shoots Harry in the leg, but then it also still calls back at the end. Exactly. When Dennis Hopper is like, "You're not going to shoot this hostage, are you?" And it's like, no, he's definitely not. But it's still such a good callback when he does it again at the end. You know, you can tell that Harry is considering it, or not Harry, sorry, Jack. You can tell that Jack considers shooting Annie in the leg for a minute, but then he's like, probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to work twice.
No, but also I kind of like that because they paid it back early, it's a bit more kind of fresh in your memory because they've already kind of done it. So it for someone like me, I've got an attention span of, you know, a small insect. So the fact that they also pay it off at the end, and the fact that he can't actually go through with it for me, it kind of adds a bit more gravitas to the situation, because he could quite easily shoot Harry in the leg. Like, he had no qualms about it, but he's been through everything up to that point with Annie, and he can't do it. The one thing that he thought was so easy to do, just shoot the hostage, he can't do.
Right.
And I really like that about Jack at the end. So essentially, we have the scene with the elevator. They manage eventually to unscrew an access panel to get them out. Which again, that scene where the elevator's kind of slowly kind of coming down each time they're pulling someone out. Oh my god, it's literally edge of your seat stuff. Like, I still sit here and I'm like, oh my god, are they going to get that final lady out? And it's like, I know they are.
I know, it's like, is she going to lose both her legs? Like, it's
I know,
awful.
because it's so close. And yeah, it's so good that it can still instill that fear and anxiety in you, just watching it for like 200th time. But essentially, they don't catch Payne. They think he's blown himself up, which you would kind of think, considering he had a vest on with all of the bombs, that he probably would have blown himself up.
Right.
But no, because they're getting their medals for bravery. and they think he's dead, but he's not dead. He's alive, and he's watching it on TV, because that will also be called back later, because he watches a lot of stuff on TV.
Yes, he does. He is one of the most TV watchingest villains in an action movie.
He really is. I love the fact as well that he's got, like, I think he's got so many TVs, and I'm like, and they're the old sort of style, the tiny little CRT monitors that everyone used to have in the 90s, and nowadays, obviously, with our, you know, plasma flat screens, I always kind of feel a little like, how did we fit TVs in our houses? Because
I have no
were
idea.
So big.
They would go like 3 feet off the wall. Like that, you know how much space you lost with your 3 feet of TV?
I know, it's crazy. And now we're like, oh, well, you know, do we want a 65-inch flat screen or a 75-inch flat screen? And I'm like, ugh, it's crazy. It's crazy how technology changes. Anyway, so the thing that, one of the things that I really like about this film is the interaction that we get sort of after they've got their medals, and then we have kind of Jack just sort of going to sort of a coffee house to just pick up some coffee on his way to work. You know, just a normal average day. Happens to meet a friend of his who's a bus driver, has a bit of a chat, and because it kind of lulls you into this false sense of security that, okay, you know, we know that the guy's still out there, but everything's fine. Like, just having a nice conversation. And yeah, then this bus explodes. And you're kind of a bit like, what?
Yeah.
What just happened? And because it's so ruthless. And I think I'm going to mention that word a lot because I kind of can't think of another word that would satisfactorily describe Howard Payne other than ruthless.
Yeah, he's very unconcerned.
Despicable.
Unconcerned with the collateral damage too. Like he only is trying to like get one over on Jack. He doesn't really care about the innocent bystanders.
No, he really doesn't. And it's, in a way, it's lucky that bus was empty. I mean, obviously it had the driver on the bus. But otherwise there was no one else around, because you would think in LA, at that sort of time of the morning, because I think it's, in the movie, I think it's maybe, I don't know, 8 a.m. or something around that time.
It's like rush hour.
Sort of around that time. You would think that bus would be packed.
Yeah, I would say that to me is honestly the least realistic part of this movie, is that they don't have to go below 50 on the freeway in Los Angeles. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Where I was in this time watching it was the first time I really thought about it, where I was like, they are cruising the entire time. And that is unlikely at any time in Los Angeles, much less rush hour. Yeah. I've
been to Los Angeles, and I remember what the traffic was like, and I absolutely love the city of Los Angeles. I didn't see much of it because it's, as I realised, because I was like, I'm going to go to LA, you know, and as part of my holiday. And then I realised LA is actually, you know, 20 times the size of London or something ridiculous.
Yeah, it's huge. It's very sprawling.
Yeah. And you literally, you go to one or two places in LA or, you know, the surrounding sort of cities and towns. And so, like, Anaheim, I went to Anaheim. I spent a lot of time in Anaheim, but obviously Disneyland. But yeah, other than that, and obviously I went to Hollywood, but so the parts of LA that I saw are probably, you know, not really the same, but I went on the freeway sort of, you know, travelling around, and it was atrocious. The traffic was horrendous, and bear in mind, this was like, you know, I think I went in 2010. Yeah, 2010. And so obviously, sometime after this, so you'd imagine that the population is a lot bigger now. Oh, yeah. There's going to be more traffic on the roads. There's going to be more roads. And I was like, yeah, this is not my experience of traffic in LA.
Going a solid 50 the whole time.
Yeah, I don't think I got higher than 20. But, you know, I'm sure that if I was in, like, a bus with a bomb, I'm sure I would have made sure that I was going above 50 and just, like, ramming people out of the way. Annie does go around
the obstacles very well.
I mean, she's an excellent driver. And I think, because I read somewhere that Sandra Bullock actually took her bus driving test and passed it.
Yep.
So she's not driving the bus. They had like a stunt driver who was, I think he was on the top of the bus.
Oh, okay.
Or sort of far behind her, so he couldn't be seen. But so they had like a proper stunt driver.
Nice.
But she did do some of the driving. And she has her bus driving license, so you never know, you might pop on the I don't know, 1814 to Santa Barbara and you might see Sandra Bullock at the wheel and go, oh hi. You never know. So yeah, the thing with that first bus is it kind of makes you realise that this guy is kind of the real deal, in a sense that he is going to do whatever he can now. He knows who Jack is. He's gonna make his point, and then the phone rings, and you're a little bit like, oh my god, they have payphones. It's like, what's a payphone? And then you realise that this isn't the 90s, and there were payphones everywhere back then. Not so much now. And yeah, then you realise you could ring a payphone once upon a time, and someone could answer. And yeah, the clever thing about Howard Payne is that he's there. He's kind of there in the vicinity. He knows what's going on. He can see. We find out later that he has eyes on the situation, so he knows what's going on. So he knows that Jack's there. He knows that he's going to be able to pick up the phone. And yeah, then he tells him about there's a bomb on another bus, and Jack should go and find that bus. And yeah, otherwise it's gonna explode just like the first bus. So Jack gets into his car, leaves his coffee on the roof. I mean, Jack, come on, why would you leave your coffee? Drink your coffee.
You need the coffee. Nobody does. And also I thought it was hilarious that I didn't realize until I was reading the trivia and the show notes that you sent me, but he's driving a white Bronco. It's a 68 Bronco, so it's not new, but he's driving a white Bronco, and it's like the footage is like identical from the OJ chase, which happened the week after this movie came out.
It's incredible.
I had no idea.
It's like life imitating art.
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible that a week after this came out, the police were chasing OJ Simpson
on the same freeway. Yeah.
Obviously, maybe he's seen Speed and he thinks, oh, I'm just gonna, go for a little jolly in my car to get away from the police.
Yep.
But the Jack kind of getting onto the freeway to because he realizes where the bus is, and he realizes that he needs to get on the bus. He tries to get the bus up in traffic, because at that point the bus hasn't hit 50.
Yeah, and that's again one of those moments where it's like you as the viewer are like, oh my god, just don't go faster, just listen to him, just stop the bus, because if you just stop the bus, maybe you'll be okay.
Because obviously he's in plain clothes, but if he was in a police officer's uniform, they would have stopped it straight away. So the fact that he's in plain clothes, he has a badge, but obviously they can't, he's trying to get on. I think what was really interesting is obviously the scenes where he's obviously running to the bus to try and get on it, and he kind of bashes his hand on the glass and it shatters. That was actually accidental. Like, Keanu Reeves wasn't supposed to do that. Right. He hit it so hard that it ended up kind of cracking the glass, but they kept it in because it looked so good.
It looks great, and it also was like, oh, Keanu Reeves is stronger than I thought.
I mean, he's a hunk of burning love.
He is. He's so fit in this movie too, and it's one of those things I didn't really think about when I was younger, but I was like watching it with that eye last night, and I was like, his arms are pretty good arms.
He's delightful specimen of a man.
Yep. Even now, John Wick,
especially now,
John Wick is so good looking.
I mean, I know the thing is I kind of feel like with Keanu is that I think he's 50. I think I'm right in thinking that he's 50.
I think he's 54.
Okay. I mean, so he's a little bit older. But I kind of, that doesn't really, it doesn't bother me.
No,
it's like,
not at all.
Because, I mean, the fact that he doesn't look older, I mean, I kind of feel like, he and Paul Rudd, they've obviously drank some secret elixir somewhere. They are wonderful human beings, just generally, and they look nice.
I was going to say, that's what it is. It's that they mind their business, and they stay in their lane, and they don't talk smack about anybody, and they're just good people.
They are just, I think they are just good people, and Paul Rudd is someone who I've just loved completely since Clueless, and I will continue to love until my dying breath.
Yep.
And I kind of feel the same about Keanu Reeves, is that he's been in my life for so long. I think he's just phenomenal, and he comes across as he just wants to act. You know, he doesn't want to be a celebrity. He doesn't want to be papped. He just wants to do a couple of films, have a nice life, and be nice to people.
And I love this resurgence he's having right now too, because he's always been working, but with like John Wick, he's having like a big career resurgence, and I love it.
He deserves it.
He definitely deserves it.
You look back, I mean, to be fair, he's not had a particularly, you can't say that his career has been completely positive in the sense of the roles that he's picked. He's done a couple of duffers. But I think that what he brings to films is something that I kind of feel like you really struggle to kind of put your finger on exactly what he does. But it's in this, I mean, I obviously love that he's super hot and super attractive and very good looking. But I also, and I realise they're all the same thing.
Those are the same, yeah.
But I also love the fact that he kind of takes these little moments to look after people. And I know it's obviously the character and it's not really him, and I get that. But just little things like he always asks Annie if she's okay and how she's doing, and I kind of feel like it would be so easy for someone to write a script and sort of have this leading action man who's buff and good looking and takes charge and all of that, and just like has him barking orders at people. But I kind of like that with someone like Keanu, you do have that sensitivity kind of inbuilt.
Yeah. And
you genuinely kind of feel that with Jack, that when Annie hits her head and he kind of takes his shirt and tries to put, pressure on it because it's bleeding, and that's something that he would do.
I totally agree.
And it's not just a character thing.
I totally agree. I also think their chemistry is some of the best action movie chemistry that's so ever existed. I think they're so good together. And obviously he wasn't unknown, but they have the kind of chemistry of two unknowns in their first big movie together. You know what it feels like? It really feels like Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley in the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
Yeah.
Where they both were like very, like, she was pretty much brand new. She was like 17 when they were filming that movie. And he had only been in Lord of the Rings, but he was unrecognizable from that. And the two of them in that movie, you can tell that they're both just like super young, super green. And they're like, this could go either way. Let's make the most of it. And that's what this chemistry feels like to me too. It just feels very... It's very real. You can tell that, they liked each other behind the scenes and like backstage and stuff. And they've got that special something. And we talk about chemistry a lot on our show because a lot of people discount it and they're like, they're just actors. And I'm like, there have been good actors in movies together that were shit at chemistry, Yeah. And like, so I always love it when it's like, the thing I always say is it feels like the screen catches fire when certain people are on camera together, and like this feels like that to me. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock have some of the best chemistry in this movie of any action movie for sure.
Yeah, I think that their chemistry is just off the charts, and there was I think at the sort of shortly after, I think Sandra Bullock, she confessed that she did have a massive crush on Keanu Reeves, but she kind of felt like it would be unprofessional to to go ahead and sort of say that to him at the time. So she just kind of left it as having a crush. And then I think just recently he came out and said, oh, well, you know, I had a massive crush on her during the time. And I kind of feel like this was such a missed opportunity for them to be together.
No, I agree.
They are so perfect in this film. And I kind of feel like they would have been so perfect in real life. And yeah, it kind of feels like a bit of a missed love affair. But I have to kind of forgive the movie for that, because sometimes it's like, you know, right place, wrong time, or wrong place, right time. And it's just one of those that, you know, sometimes you just can't tell that person that you like them, and you just have to move on. And that's obviously what they did, but it is a little bit sad that they could have been so happy together. And I kind of feel like, I mean, they still could be. I think that they should definitely, if they want, they should definitely do that.
I think she's married again.
Is she?
I thought she was.
I thought she was single.
Oh.
Because she was married to a really awful guy.
Jesse James,
Didn't she? I thought they got divorced.
They did. He cheated on her. They got divorced in 2010, it looks like. I thought she was with somebody again. Maybe not. Maybe I was wrong.
I mean, I'm gonna put it out there that I think that they should at least consider it.
Come on, guys, make it work.
I mean, just, you know, rekindle that magic. He likes her. She likes him. They're both gorgeous. I mean, I think we should make it happen. I don't know how, but I think we should speak. we should like speak to the gods or something and make this happen. Because they are so fantastic. And I do agree with you that chemistry on screen is something that you can't fake. You know, similarly to, I know that they're actors and it's their job to make believe and pretend and all of that. But I'm sorry, if you don't like someone that you're working with as an actor, it does come across on screen.
I agree.
Often. And there's been, you know, many famous examples of where people just have not gotten on. And it's kind of affected the movie in a little way. Yeah. But I kind of feel like with these guys, the chemistry is so, and I think I posted a GIF on Twitter, and it's just like just a little one about him looking at her.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and I think I put something like, get yourself a man who looks at you like Keanu Reeves looks at Sandra Bullock in Speed. And it's like, the way he looks at her is just like, oh my God, I want them to live happily ever after. You know? Like,
I'll say too, I don't normally, brown eyes on men to me are kind of boring for the most part, but he's got some good brown eyes.
He's got great eyes.
I could look at those brown eyes for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I do kind of feel like this is I can't even speak. I'm so taken by it. This is kind of turning into like the We Really Love Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock podcast. Yeah. But I don't care because this movie is...
We'll get back together again and do the lake house.
I've never seen it.
Neither have I.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we should see it. Maybe we should see it and then get back together and be like, are they still good? Yes or no? But, you know, for just sort of talking about like Keanu Reeves and the character of Jack and everything, I thought it was quite interesting because Stephen Baldwin was the first choice, but he turned it down because he thought it was too much like Die Hard, which it kind of was, because it was Die Hard on a bus. Aforementioned Tom Cruise was considered, Tom Hanks, Wesley Snipes, Woody Harrelson, but Jan de Bont actually
I couldn't even imagine Tom Hanks. I'm sorry, I couldn't even imagine
you really couldn't. It's Tom Hanks is like literally the nicest man ever. Yeah. I can't see him in any sort of role like this. So yeah, I think that, I don't know, he probably would have been fantastic because he's Tom Hanks and he always is. But,
yeah, I mean, Turner and Hooch is because he's a cop in that, but still, I can't. He's too silly. Yeah. And Keanu Reeves has like
that's more of a comedy though, isn't it?
Yeah, Keanu Reeves has a gravitas, I guess, that Tom Hanks doesn't usually get to.
Yeah, you can feel like he could be an action star. And obviously he is an action star because, you know, he's done all sorts of action. I mean, John Wick, obviously, is probably the most famous and most recent stuff he's done, but he's done loads of stuff. Obviously, you know, things like The Matrix.
Yeah.
I mean, iconic. But yeah, you couldn't imagine someone like Tom Hanks even being considered. And apparently Jan de Bont wanted someone who could be vulnerable and most importantly, someone who wasn't threatening to men.
Yeah.
Which I kind of find, I kind of find it a little bit laughable that was the criteria. You know, we want someone who's not threatening to a man. But,
well, it was right on the heels of all of the stuff in the 80s where all the action stars were like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
And so those guys are threatening to men because they're so much bigger and they're so much stronger and they're, you know, but I can see how Keanu Reeves, it's like he's got kind of a, you know, he's got a very pretty face. He does have those soft brown eyes. And so it's like the women want to look at him and the men think they could be him.
Yeah, exactly. And in a way, it was inspired choice.
Oh, for
because
sure.
You're absolutely right. Because in that way, you know, and that's probably what how the film did so well was that you would maybe have a couple or husband and wife or whoever who would go to the cinema and he'd go because he wanted to see an action movie with, you know, a guy who he could probably be one day if he went to the gym. And then you had the wife who was like, oh, I quite like him. He's quite nice.
Exactly.
And it was a winner. And then obviously for the men, obviously Sandra Bullock was obviously at the time she was fresh faced. She was pretty much girl next door kind of look.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And she's not threatening to women, I guess, either.
No, because she's so cute.
She is perfect.
Yeah.
She's like I can't even describe like how I felt about Sandra Bullock back then, but I just loved her so much because she was a bit goofy and a little bit like unassuming and
well, she's not a bombshell. She's very pretty, but she's not a bombshell, and she's got the cute haircut, and she's wearing like regular clothes and a hoodie, and so it's like it's very, you know, that's another thing that we've gotten away from in action movies, in my opinion, where the women, and you know, I want to say out front that the society as a whole owes Megan Fox an apology, but it's like in the Transformers movie, like when we got to that point with the like midriff and the cleavage and the short skirts with the action movie women, we got to a bad spot. And we're pulling out of that a little bit now, but it's like this was before that. And I think that that's why, so it's like, it's the same on both sides where men think that they can be Keanu Reeves in this movie and women want to look at Keanu Reeves in this movie, and women think that they could be Sandra Bullock in this movie and men want to be with Sandra Bullock in this movie. And so it's like it's like the exact, it's one of those lightning in a bottle moments where like the script got tweaked just right, you know, the story is just simple but so interesting, and then the chemistry between the leads and the acting on the leads, and like everything came together in one of those just exactly perfect cinema moments for this movie.
Yeah. It's... yeah, I completely agree with what you've just said. I think that kind of summarises everything that's just brilliant about this movie and about why it's so appealing, I think. Even now, you know, it's like 25 years old and it's still probably one of the best action movies ever made.
Absolutely.
Because it can still hold your attention, it can still make you feel these feelings, and it still kind of has these appealing characters and these appealing actors who are just wonderful together, they're wonderful apart, and you know, you kind of feel like it's a bit of like a genie in a bottle situation, that everything kind of came together really, really well. And I'm not going to lie, I watched Speed 2. And that is basically the complete opposite in every way.
Okay.
In every way.
I saw that you were watching it, and all I want to say is that I'm 100% sure I spent money to see Speed 2 in the theater when it came out.
Why?
Why
would you do that?
Because I liked the first one, and when did the second one come out? What year?
I think it was 97.
Okay, so by that point, I was old enough to go by myself, so I went and saw it by myself, and not like alone. I was only 12 or 13, but I saw it with friends, so I was able to go. I was able to see it, and then I still really liked Sandra Bullock, and I really liked the trailer because it had that UB40 song in it.
Oh my god.
And that is when I started really liking Jason Patric, and I also liked Willem Dafoe. And so all I really remember is that the guy who drives the Jaguar in the first Speed, the one that he like commandeers his car, his name is Glenn Plummer, and he is in the second one, he drives the speedboat.
Yeah.
And I remember Willem Dafoe had a bunch of leeches because he had some kind of blood disorder.
Oh my god, that really creeped me out with the leeches. I hate leeches.
That's pretty much all I remember. And, and then when the cruise ship like crashes into the pier at the end, right? Yeah, okay. That's all I remember, but I remember liking it at the time, but again, I was like 13.
Yeah, the thing is it's called Speed 2. So
Cruise
one
control.
would assume that it contains some sort of speed. And I mean, obviously there is speedboats,
sure.
Which I guess are speedy.
But cruise ships don't go that fast.
The thing is, it's got obviously Sandra Bullock, and I think, to be fair, I know that Keanu refused to do it because he was like, I'm not doing this, it sounds like shit. Yeah. And everyone was like, yes, Keanu, you were right, you're the man. But then, because he refused, he was then blacklisted by 20th Century Fox for 11 years.
Unbelievable.
Which is crazy, considering how bad this movie was. He was absolutely right to pass on it.
Oh, for sure.
And Sandra Bullock, she agreed, but only because she wanted to. She had a passion project called Hope Floats, which I do remember seeing a long time ago, but not since.
Oh my god, it's so good. You should definitely watch it again.
Yeah, I do remember enjoying it, but I don't remember much about it, so I probably should really watch that again. But Hope Floats apparently did really well.
It did,
and
yeah.
She really wanted to get it done, and they kind of said, well, you do our sequel, we'll fund your passion project.
Yeah.
So, to be fair, we have Speed 2 to thank for Hope Floats, which is probably the only good thing about Speed 2. Other than Sandra Bullock is gorgeous.
Yeah, her hair is a little bit longer.
I mean, she's just the most beautiful thing in the whole movie. And I will concede, although I think Jason Patric is not good, I think he has nice eyes.
He is handsome. He's not as handsome as Keanu Reeves.
He's handsome.
And he's certainly made better movies. But yeah, I remember very little about it, except for I think it started my love affair with Willem Dafoe, because I still love everything he does to this day.
I really do love Willem Dafoe. I can't get over the meme of, is it like Willem Dafoe, Willem Defriend?
Yes, yeah.
I still, every time I see Willem Dafoe, I can't get over that.
It's so good.
But also the googly eyes that he does, you know, yeah, I've struggled to get past the googly, the thing he does with his eyes. I'm not sure how he does it, but he kind of stares into my soul when he does that.
I love so much when people who are strange looking just lean into it. Like him and Steve Buscemi, people like that.
I love Steve Buscemi.
Honestly, even a way more handsome example, but Bill Skarsgård, who plays Pennywise in the new It movies, they just like, I love it when they don't try to be something they're not, when they just really lean in. It's always the best choice to lean into your weirdness.
I mean, if you're weird, just be weird.
Yeah, totally.
I'm weird, and that's who I am, so people just need to deal with my weirdness.
It takes too many people too long to understand that being weird is the best part of being a person.
Yeah. No, totally. And it was one of those things where I was a very weird child. And it's probably one of those things that I was always a bit ashamed of, because I was basically a bit of a weird child. And now I'm like, I love the fact that I was a weird child.
Yeah.
I love the fact that I read comic books, and literally none of my friends read comic books. I was the only girl that in my whole friend group who knew what a comic book was.
Oh my gosh.
And well, I mean, this was like the middle of England in like the sort of late 80s, early 90s kind of time, and we didn't really have comic book shops or anything like that. It's only something that's really kind of started, you know, since sort of the 2000s onwards, that comic book stores have started to be prevalent sort of around here, because I don't live anywhere near London, so London is kind of out of the way really for me. But yeah, it's like the fact that I loved superhero stuff and I loved the X-Men, and I've always sort of talked about my affinity with the X-Men, because obviously they were kind of outcasts because they were different, and I've always kind of felt the same because I've always felt different to, especially kind of other girls.
Yeah.
Especially growing up, as a teenager, I always felt like I liked different things because I was the kid who liked watching, action movies, stuff like Speed, and it's like, I'd always get told, oh, well, that's a boy movie. And I'm like,
God, it's
yeah,
so...
but is it though?
Movies shouldn't be gendered. I hate it so much.
I hate it. I hate it.
I was very similar because, like I said at the beginning, my parents sort of let me, with exceptions, but they sort of let me watch and absorb whatever media, movies, TV, books. I was not restricted in my book reading at all. And so there are so many things where I do have this affinity for, and I think my weirdness is more towards like old movies. Like I have a lot of old movies that I love that people have never even heard of, and it's because my parents, whenever they would get the free HBO weekend, they would videotape movies off of HBO. So we had like 300 movies, like old movies. So like I've seen Lawrence of Arabia, I've seen Bridge on the River Kwai. Like one of my favorite movies of all time is called That Touch of Mink, which is a Doris Day and Cary Grant movie. It's like people don't know those movies anymore, and they're so good. And so it's like, that's the kind of thing where I do have kind of an affinity for, these dramatic movies that people my age didn't like. Like I really loved Forrest Gump when I was too young for Forrest Gump. I really loved The Shawshank Redemption, where at a time when I didn't understand a lot of the things that were happening to Andy in prison, it's like I have these weird like deep dark things that I really gravitated towards as a child that have, I think, served me a little bit better as an adult, where like I did see all the rom-coms and stuff and all the quote-unquote girl movies that I was supposed to, but those were never my favorite ones. And I think that's so interesting how we gender stuff like that in a gross way. Yeah.
No, and I think it's something that it doesn't happen as much nowadays, which I'm kind of thankful for. That I kind of feel like, because I've spoken a couple of times about, on this show, about my niece and about how I always kind of instill this value in her that she can like whatever she wants to like. Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is, you can still like it. And I always encourage her, when I specifically took her to Captain Marvel, because I wanted to show her that, because my nephew, her brother, is very into superheroes. He loves Spider-Man. He loves Toy Story now. Toy Story is his new fave. But, he loves Spider-Man and Captain America and Iron Man and all of that. And she always kind of felt that wasn't for her. And so that's kind of part of the reason why I loved Captain Marvel so much. It was for me and the way it made me feel, but it was also for her. And to kind of say, look, this is for you as well. But you don't just have to like Captain Marvel. You can also like Captain America and Thor.
Oh, totally.
And it's something that I'm really, I guess you could say passionate about.
Oh yes, me too.
It's really important to me that children understand that there is no segregation in art and film and music, and but that kind of extends not just to gender, but to someone's race. Just because you're a white person, it doesn't mean you can't like rap music.
And that's, I totally agree with you. And that's one of the things that I love so much. We have a friend named Amira, and she's not really a fan of comic book stuff, but her boyfriend is. And she told us when she saw Avengers Endgame, and they have the A-Force scene when all the female Avengers come and they're in the same spot and they're in the same shot, and it's friggin' amazing. She was like, I might have liked superhero movies when I was growing up if there had ever been even one thing like that. One shot like that when we were growing up. And I just like, so many people think it's pandering, but I think that it's just like the first wave of what's coming. And like, if we get an A-Force movie, I will lose my mind.
I will be there. I will be there losing my mind with you.
Could you even imagine?
I want it so badly, and I understand why people thought it was pandering, and I understand, you know, the comments about, you know, the guy in the support group, and they were like, oh, this is the first homosexual character, and I understand why people were annoyed, and I fully believe that they will be going down the route of introducing a named character who is LGBT, and they're going to do it soon, because
super soon. They've said they are going to.
Yeah, it's something they can't sit on it now. They've got to do it.
But
it's about time.
To me, the thing with that is, I think people jumped on it and was like, well, that's the straight director pretending to be gay. That's not okay. And I think people jumped on that as opposed to, do you understand what it means that Captain America just sanctioned a gay relationship? That's important. Like, that's a thing. It's sort of like on a show that we have talked mad shit about, Once Upon a Time. At a certain point, Snow White gives her blessing to a lesbian relationship. She's the grand dame of Disney. For these characters specifically to be the ones who are like, this is something that's okay to do, I think people are missing the importance of that, and in a way where they're just getting mad about the fact that it's not exactly how they want, and they're missing what a big step it is.
Yeah.
Because it is still really important. Like, that's a step you need to take. And it doesn't mean that it's as far as we need to go, but I think people miss what a big deal it is. It's a really big deal.
Yeah, it's almost like if a character who is as entrenched in duty and honor and
the military
and all of that can turn around and endorse this and be happy for this person,
right.
And that, you know, maybe that will inspire people who, because there are still a lot of people out there who are not, you know, behind the LGBT movement, that, you know, if that character, someone like Captain America, who stands for basically the whole of America in his values, can turn around and say, I endorse that, I'm happy for you, you go for it, that maybe they might think, well, hold on a second, maybe it's not wrong.
Exactly.
You know, maybe I should also be celebrating this and encouraging this and helping people. And yeah, I completely am with you on that. I think it is important, and I think that they will take the steps. And similarly with A-Force, I didn't feel like it was pandering. I thought it was wonderful. I absolutely loved it. I did feel like, why have we not had this sooner?
No, of course, of course.
You know, but it was always going to be like that. We've had 10 years of Marvel Studios up until this point, you know, very kind of male-centric, very male-heavy, and we've reached a point now where it's beyond our time. Like,
absolutely.
We're gonna get this now, and I'm fully confident as well, because I feel like Marvel is generally really great with casting choices. I think that Sarah Halley Finn, I think that she does not get the credit she deserves for those movies and for the casting. The cast is, like, I would say 99.9% casting perfection.
Who don't you like? I feel like there's one person you don't like.
Well, the thing is these people are kind of long gone from the whole thing anyway, but I was never a massive fan of Edward Norton. He became difficult behind the scenes, so they kicked him out. Yeah, I think he's been really great. I think he was really great in Fight Club, but I kind of feel like I just never felt like he was the right fit for the character, and I always kind of, every time I watch the film, and maybe it's because I'm watching it now knowing about Mark Ruffalo,
right? But
I do kind of feel like, yeah, there's something that's not quite right. I don't feel like I'm connecting with Bruce.
Yeah. Well, he's like notoriously kind of a dick.
Well, yeah, there is that. And then I guess, I mean, I don't think Terrence Howard was really bad or anything.
Okay, so you just don't like the people who got fired.
I mean, I kind of feel like they got fired for a reason.
Oh yeah, they for sure, because they both of them, after their first movies, they were like, give me more money, and Marvel was like, that's not what this is about, and they were like, well, fuck you then. And sorry, I haven't said fuck yet, is that okay?
I'll probably bleep it out.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, but they basically, both of them became very difficult behind the scenes, and so they were like, okay, well, we don't need you, like, you need us, and they let them go and brought in better people.
Yeah. I mean, I'm struggling to think of someone who I really, really dislike, casting-wise, and I really can't.
Yeah.
So maybe we should move back to
Yes, we should. All of that can be cut, probably, if you want to save it for something else.
I'll just save it for, like, the after show where we talk about everything other than speed. Where even are we on speed? Jack's not even gone on the bus yet, Kristin. He's not even on the bus.
We can move. We can move quickly. We can move more quickly.
The film is called Speed, so I kind of feel like
we are moving slowly. We're moving at the speed of a cruise ship, not a bus.
Oh my god. Oh, we suck. Right. Okay. So Jack is on the freeway and he's trying to find bus 2525 because 25 add 25 is 50. So there you go. So I really love when he obviously commandeers the car, and the guy is basically like, "What are you doing? This is my car." And the one thing that I really love about the scene where obviously they manage to get the sign up to say there's a bomb on the bus, and they Jack is obviously trying to get on the bus, and he kind of drives in front, opens the door, and then brakes really hard. And the thing that I love the most about that is it's almost like the cars behind didn't know it was happening.
Right.
Because if you watch the cars behind, it might be a choice that they made to go, oh, well, you know, to pretend like this guy is coming out of nowhere. But it does kind of feel a little bit like these cars like swerve out of the way and just in time. Yeah. And you're like, oh my God, were they actually planning to do this on the freeway at this time? Hope so.
They were actually. I was reading the trivia, and Jan de Bont said it was like the worst thing that they had to film when they were on the freeway because they had to reset all the cars back to the beginning of the freeway. So everybody had to basically drive in a big circle like a bunch of times every time they had to do another take.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So and then when he breaks the car door, which is brilliant, and then Keanu Reeves actually was the person who jumped on the bus, and he insisted on doing, because I think he did like 90% of his own stunts, which is something that's quite unheard of.
At the time, at least, yeah.
Yeah, Tom Cruise is quite famous for doing the majority, and then he went and broke his ankle because he did his own stunts. But Keanu Reeves wanted that, or he wanted it to feel authentic.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I think this film feels authentic. And I don't want to take anything away from stunt performers because, again, like I mentioned Sarah Halley Finn with casting, I think stunt performers are the unsung heroes of pretty much every single film you've ever seen in your life.
Absolutely. We've been arguing that there needs to be a stunt Oscar, like a stunt coordinator Oscar or something like that, because they don't get any play. It's ridiculous.
I think these people are phenomenal. And obviously everyone always kind of sort of says, oh, well, you know, it's a great thing that the actors are doing their own stunts. It's kind of not, because you would think, well, insurance-wise, you know, that's probably going to cost them quite a lot of money to insure your massive star. I guess Keanu Reeves wasn't that big a star at the time, so maybe he just kind of could get away with it. And I think Tom Cruise is like, well, I'm Tom Cruise, so
yeah, no, exactly. I think he probably insures himself too.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, the fact that Keanu Reeves did his own 90% of his own stunts is amazing. But saying that, obviously, I kind of feel like I don't want to take away from the guys who do stunts for a living, because they are phenomenal and undervalued. And I completely agree. Why don't we have an Oscar for stunt work? It's just
we need that before we need a best popular movie or whatever they were talking about last year.
Oh, definitely. I don't understand why Hollywood is still so insistent on not recognizing these people. I mean, anyway, I feel like we're going off on a tangent again. Let's go off on a tangent.
We're good.
Let's talk about Jack. Right, so Jack gets on the bus.
We're there. Yay!
And he obviously speaks to the driver. And I quite like at this point, because Annie's obviously, excuse me, what are you doing? And, it comes out. Well, no, it doesn't come out at that point, because then you have the Sam the driver getting shot, because and I think the first time I watched it, I didn't understand why this guy would just sort of stand up and sort of brandish a gun and be all like, hey man,
welcome to America.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't want to go into the whole gun thing.
No.
It's a bit, it always kind of weirds me out a little bit, because we don't really have guns here. So,
well, he's very clearly some kind of criminal, and he thinks that Jack is getting on the bus for him, and it's like, I don't know why he doesn't understand when he's like, I don't care what you did, and he still shoots. But I guess the other guy tackles him, but
yeah. So I kind of feel like it is like a bit of a victim of circumstance in that regard, because I kind of feel like if Ortiz, the big guy, didn't kind of tackle him down, that Sam probably wouldn't have got shot.
Yeah.
But I really like that scene specifically, because obviously Jack does attempt to talk him down and be like, look, I'm not here for you. There's something bigger. I'm going to put my gun away, and, kind of just like lowers it down and tries to diffuse the situation, which kind of leans you more towards that kind of sensitivity that I mentioned earlier with Jack, that he understands the gravity of the situation, but he's got a guy with a gun, so he needs to, diffuse this guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get the gun off him. But unfortunately, Sam, the driver, gets shot. Quite seriously shot, because he's bleeding quite profusely. and then Annie gets behind the wheel. And at first I thought that she was sitting on Sam's lap, which I thought was a bit weird. But then I realised that they'd actually taken him off the seat.
They move him, yeah.
Because so she kind of gets in front and then they move him. But I remember thinking for a long time that she was sitting on the guy's lap. And I was like, that is very inappropriate, Annie.
He is bleeding
and
so
Sam.
much, Annie.
Yeah, you are not helping him with his blood flow even.
Yeah.
Blood rate. What's blood rate? This attractive young woman just all of a sudden plonks herself on his lap. But yeah, so they've moved Sam, the driver, and they're taking care of him, and then obviously the truth comes out that there is a bomb on the bus, and at that point, the bus is already at 50.
Yes, it
because
is.
Sam has put his foot down in this bus. It's the only bus in the world that seems to be able to travel at 50, because buses here, it doesn't matter whether you're on a 30 road or a 50 road or a 60 road, they are going to do 30. So British buses can only do a maximum of 30 miles an hour. I swear to God, it's the bane of my life being stuck behind a bus.
I was going to say, I think it's the same here. I've never seen a bus going faster than maybe 40. And we also have really terrible public transit anyway, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's not brilliant here, but I think most buses are limited in speed anyway now because of pollution and all of that. So, I mean, any kind of big vehicle tends to be limited here now anyway to 40 or 50. So yeah, another very 90s thing, that there's a large passenger bus that doesn't have a speed limiter on it, so it can go above 50, regardless, as we've mentioned before, of the traffic in Los Angeles and the surrounding area, which obviously I think she does do a good job, because they do. There are a couple of scenes where she's like, stay on or get off kind of thing, and he's like, get off, and because of the traffic and it's all building up, and you kind of like, what do you do in that situation? Well, you've kind of got to go where the traffic isn't going, but I'd argue in LA the traffic is everywhere.
No, exactly. Which is why I think I love so much, at first they get onto the unopened section of the freeway, and so you're like, then they're able to keep the 50 because there's no other cars there. And then when they have to make the very improbable jump across the unfinished part, they decide to get to the airport, and I always remembered being like, that's really smart, because the runway is big enough that even when you have to turn, you can keep at 50 for such a wide turn. It's just, this script is amazing.
Yeah, and that's the thing, it's genuinely clever, because you would, if you're driving towards an airport, you've got an airport in the vicinity, you know, an airport is literally just 2 lines of tarmac that kind of just goes round and round. So it's like, and it's got to be wide, and it's got to, you know, be wide enough on the corners for a plane to go round. So it's kind of, well, that actually makes so much sense that it's almost like ridiculous. It makes so much sense that they'd go to an airport. One thing that really kind of, once they get off, when she's like, say on or get off, and he says get off, they end up like, just, I don't even know where in LA, but it's almost like not a residential area, but it's like a built up area.
Yeah.
And the scene that always makes me kind of hide a little bit is the scene with the pram.
Yes, yeah.
Every single time, because although I know that it doesn't have a baby in it, it's her reaction, because Sandra Bullock's reaction is so genuine, because if you thought you just hit a baby in a pushchair,
oh yeah,
you would be beside yourself, and you wouldn't know what to do. You'd panic, and you'd be so upset.
That's one of the things that I did speak to him yesterday for a minute. That's one of the things that he remembers about the movie, because he hasn't seen it in ages. But he has he got a very warped sense of what adult life was going to be like when he was very young, because of movies like this, and also the movie Showgirls.
I love Showgirls.
Yes. So if you haven't listened to it, you should listen to the episode that we did with Sade, because that's another one that's very good. Because
it's very good.
She had no idea what she was getting into when we made her watch that. But so he saw that. He saw the scene. He remembers the scene where she hits the baby carriage, and he remembers being like, this is horrible. This is what being an adult is going to be like, is just like running around and like hitting baby carriages and having weird sex in pools. And he was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, this sounds awful. Like, it just sounds terrible all the time. And I just thought that was hilarious.
Sorry. I can't believe he said that. That's amazing. But yeah, that when she does hit the carriage, and I remember I know that it happens, but every single time, the revelation that it's cans, just like, oh my god, it's not a baby. Every single time. And I'm like, but why do I feel like that? Like, and also, why, I don't understand, why would she be pushing a baby carriage full of cans?
I think she's homeless.
Oh, okay.
I think she's a homeless lady. Because she and the other lady that are talking, they don't look like they're like business women or like single mothers or something. They look like they might be LA homeless people.
Oh, I just assumed they were just a couple of women, just like out for coffee, maybe. And
no, I think she's supposed to be homeless. That might be a uniquely American interpretation.
Oh, yeah, I never picked up.
Because homeless people collect cans because you can turn them into recycling centers and get money.
Right, yeah. That doesn't happen here.
Yeah.
So that is a very American, because it always kind of, I never really understood that, because yeah, we don't have that facility here where you can, you know, get money for things like that. So that, I guess, yeah, that makes a lot of sense now, because I've always kind of wondered why she would have cans in a baby carriage. But okay, so I've learned something new.
Yeah, because then you can go, if you collect enough cans, you can go turn them in, you can get money back for them, and then she could buy food, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, because yeah, I never thought about her being homeless. I just assumed she was just a lady with a carriage full of cans.
Well, in that case, then maybe she's just mentally ill.
I mean, now I'm saying it out loud, it sounds ridiculous that I just thought she was a random lady with
cans.
Cans in a carriage. And now it makes sense that she's a homeless lady.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so I've learned something new about my interpretation of this particular woman has been wrong for 25 years. That's cool. I'm happy with that. Oh, and I've just realised the other thing that happens that always shocks me is when, Jack agrees with Payne, because they obviously try, because they've got like that big wide load truck that kind of comes across and goes next to the bus, And Mac, who's like the chief, kind of says, oh, you know, we can get these people off the bus now. And Jack's like, no, he knows, you know, he can see, because obviously the helicopters. We can't get anyone off the bus. He's expressly said, no one can leave this bus. So I can't get anyone off the bus. But obviously the driver is severely injured. So Jack agrees with Payne on the phone. Yes, you can get the driver off the bus. And I do kind of feel like Payne at this point doesn't need to show mercy to the bus driver.
Yeah, not at all.
So the fact that he is showing mercy, I don't feel like he's doing it for the sake of the bus driver. I think he's only doing it because, and like Jack says, you know, it will show charity to the people who are going to give you this $3 million or whatever you want, that you value human life. So, and that's the only reason he's actually doing this. But obviously all of the other passengers are confused and want to know why they can't get off the bus. And then we have that lady who, now this has always kind of irked me. So Jack has specifically said to Mac, we cannot get any passengers off the bus. He will find out, he will blow the bus up if the passengers try to get off. So they unload the driver onto the low loader not van.
It's like a flatbed truck.
Flatbed truck. And then this lady is obviously standing by the doors. And the colleagues that were there, when Jack said, we can't let anyone off the bus, he's going to blow it up, start saying to her, come on, lady, we'll get you, come on.
Yeah.
And, I mean, idiots.
Yeah, but... I mean, kind of, there's moments in this movie, a couple moments where one or all of the people in the scene are acting kind of stupid, and this is one of the worst ones for me because I really love Beth Grant, the woman who plays Helen.
Yes, yeah, she's really great.
I've followed her for a long time. I've liked a ton of things she's been in, and I get it, and she does a really good job because she looks utterly terrified, and all she wants to do is get off the bus. She can't stand it anymore. I totally understand, but at the same time, you're like, I don't understand how you don't just sort of like trust the authority figure in that moment. You know, trust Jack. He's trying to do what's best. He's gotten the injured person away. And I also, while I do think his police colleagues like Mac and the other guy, who is also in Silence of the Lambs, by the way, playing almost the exact same role.
I didn't even recognize him.
Not the black guy, not Mac, the other one.
No, yeah. I didn't recognize anyone that I knew.
Yeah. They both of them are like, it's like they forgot what just happened.
I know.
And that's the kind of thing where I feel like having the two screenwriters might have damaged it a little bit, but only in very specific moments, because the other one is with Annie later after they've gotten off the bus and everything, and she just gets out of the ambulance. And I'm like, yes. Girl, stay in the ambulance. Your hot dude is coming back for you. You just gotta give it a minute. And she gets out of the ambulance and is, like, immediately taken by Dennis Hopper. And I'm just like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I do kind of feel that, obviously, there was a little bit of stupidity kind of shown. And sometimes I kind of feel like if characters act a bit stupid, then you can kind of forgive them on, you know, as long as it's kind of within their character in a way that you kind of feel like, okay, so maybe these police officers are just really stupid and they just didn't hear, and you can kind of understand from I think the character's name is Helen. So she's terrified and she's on a speeding bus and she's been told there's a bomb. You can completely understand why she would want to try and get off.
Yeah,
because she's petrified.
Hers, I understand. It honestly, and that one doesn't make me angry because I feel like the cops and the bus riders don't quite understand it the way that Jack does in that moment. But the Annie moment really bums me out because it feels like she's been so savvy the rest of the movie, and it's in that moment where it's just like she's like, I'm bored. Like, I'm gonna go outside. I'm bored, and I'm just like, I feel like there's stuff to play with in an ambulance. I feel like I wouldn't get bored. You know what I mean? Like I would make myself busy. I would just like read stuff in the ambulance or something.
Because I kind of feel like with that scene in particular, like, the whole point of her leaving the ambulance is so Payne can, like you say, come and find her and take her. But I kind of feel like a guy of his level of intelligence, you know, we know that he can portray a police officer. I mean, he could have quite convincingly portrayed an ambulance driver.
Yeah, and I think that's, like, it's one of those things that it's like, it's just that moment where you have to suspend your disbelief, where you just are like, you're like, I understand that she has to be out of the ambulance for him to take her. I get it. It's fine. But it's like, last night it really struck me. I was like, Annie, what are you doing?
Yeah. And you do kind of feel a little bit like you say, why are you even leaving the ambulance? You've just been through a very traumatic experience.
Yeah, like, lay down.
You have several injuries. Yeah, just like, chill out, love. Your hot man is coming back, trust me. Yeah. Keanu's not going to leave you. He's a sensitive man.
Right.
He cares for you, you know? He's going to come back. But, yeah, anyway. So, unfortunately, Payne sees this lady trying to get off the bus, and so he detonates a bomb under the steps. And it's one of the scenes that really kind of triggers something for me when she goes under the wheels, because I don't know, I guess that fear, I mean, as a driver, you know, obviously you drive with as much care and attention as you possibly can.
Yeah.
I am one of these people who breaks for animals, you know, and I'm not ashamed to admit, if a squirrel or a rabbit or whatever is crossing the road in front of me, I will try and stop my car. I am not going to hit that creature.
You're really not supposed to stop, but I do too. And
I know that, you know, if someone behind me was, you know, couldn't stop, then I would get in trouble. But I can't, with all, you know, conscience and justification, hit something like that. But it has happened. And I think, I can't remember, I think it might have been a squirrel or something, and I had to stop the car. I was so upset.
Yeah.
I was sobbing my heart out. It was years and years ago. I was sobbing my heart out. I had to stop my car at the side of the road because I felt it go under the wheels. And
I don't even like it when I hit something that's already been hit.
Yeah.
Like, by accident, it's awful.
Yeah. And just that feeling of, you know, going over something, it petrifies me. Because it's like, and also the fact that this is a human being who's scared and just wants to get off the bus, and she's been killed. We don't know if she was killed by the blast, but we assume she was. But then she goes under the wheels, and I mean, it's the stuff of nightmare for if you're driving any vehicle.
Yeah.
For something to go under your wheels it's nightmare material.
Oh no, I totally agree. And that's the moment where you have to be like, the explosion killed her, because you can't let your brain go to the place where she survived the explosion and me running her over killed her. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reaction from Annie is just like, oh my god, you know, I've just ran her over. And so that is a primal fear. That is just, and again, it's something that the film does so well. It kind of taps into those primal fears that you have.
Yeah.
And it exploits them, but it exploits them in a way that really makes you want to carry on watching this movie to see what happens next. And normally with a film that makes me feel these sorts of like emotions, like the dread and the fear and the anxiety, normally I'd switch off because I'm like, I can't deal with this. You know, not only are you making people fall down elevators, you are, you know, potentially blowing up buses, you are running people over, you know, and I can't deal with all of this. But the film it keeps me engaged.
Yeah.
And it still does to this day. It keeps me constantly engaged and constantly on the edge of my seat, even though I know that everything turns out all right in the end. But yeah, when Helen goes under the wheels, it's just, I think it kind of hits them, the seriousness of the situation then, because at that point all of the passengers are compliant,
right?
And I think they really do understand that could have been the bomb that blew them all up.
Exactly. And that's even what Annie says, where she's like, I thought that was it. She basically is like, I thought we were all dead. And like, that's such a... Confronting your own mortality that way must be terrifying.
Yeah. And then also not only the guilt of her going under the wheels, but the guilt that you're still alive.
Mm-hmm.
And she's gone.
Yep.
And I think Annie kind of says, she was just, just on the bus, just like we're all on the bus, she just wanted to get from A to B just like everyone else. And now she's gone and I'm still here. And yeah, it's the sadness of obviously losing that character. But the guilt of the people who've essentially survived to, carry on.
Yeah.
It just must be horrendous. You just don't know how that would make someone feel. But again, it's another thing that this movie does so well is that you do understand and you can feel the empathy, for these people and what they're going through. And obviously it helps that the characters, you don't really meet many of the characters on the bus. You only really meet, obviously Sam, the driver, and Annie and Helen and Ortiz. And I don't remember what the tourist's name is.
I think it's Stevens. I think they only call him by his last name. It's Alan Ruck. I know that.
Yes, yeah. Alan Ruck. Yeah. So I know his face because obviously Ferris Bueller.
Cameron from Ferris Bueller. He also is in real life married to Mireille Enos, which I find astonishing.
Who's that?
She is. Oh gosh. Well, she was first on Big Love. She played she was a set of twins, and then she was on The Killing, and now she's on that Amazon show called Hannah.
Oh, I've not watched any of those things.
She was in World War Z. She was the wife in World War Z.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah. I don't...
She's beautiful.
Yeah.
She's beautiful, redheaded, stunning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, World War Z is one of those sorts of films that it's... Because it's... and I mentioned this actually on a previous episode because it was something that was the Cabin in the Woods, the writer Drew Goddard kind of came in and rewrote the third part of that. So that's kind of where I've recently known of that link to World War Z. But I always found that film to be very kind of uneven in its tone because of that sort of shift towards the end. But I think I own it somewhere, so I should maybe watch it again. It was okay, but I don't remember her specifically.
She's just super pretty. If I was going to tell you to watch anything she's been in, it would be either her run on Big Love or 100% The Killing, because it's excellent.
Well, I have seen The Killing, but I've seen the original Swedish.
Oh, yeah, no, the
version,
the American version.
Yeah,
is what I'm talking about.
No, so I've never seen the American one because the Swedish one was so fantastic, and I guess where kind of remakes are concerned, like I've seen quite a lot of European sort of cinema in the vein of, quite a lot of, well, not quite a lot, but I've seen like the original Swedish, Let the Right One In.
Yeah.
And then I saw the American remake, Let Me In, and I much preferred the original.
Yeah, I'm similar with that, like the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo movies. The Swedish ones were so much better than the one that they got off here. But having not seen the Swedish version of The Killing, I will say the American version of The Killing is excellent. The only misstep, I think, is that you don't find out who killed the girl at the end of season 1, and I think you should. It like takes you till the end of season 2, which is kind of a bummer. But the performances are what you want to watch it for.
Yeah, and I'm assuming the plot is similar to the original Swedish version. But yeah, obviously, I would recommend the Swedish one, but then I've not seen the American one, so I can't really compare. Yeah. But basically, what we're saying is, whatever version you want to watch The Killing, because it's really good.
It's quite good, yeah.
It is really good. And sorry, going back to Speed, because this podcast is about speed. I know, people probably don't think it is.
Contrary to popular belief, I'm surprised my husband hasn't texted me yet and asked if we were still going, because it's been a minute.
It's been quite many minutes. So at this point, obviously, because Harry has been investigating behind the scenes, and they've taken clues, for example, the fact that this guy uses a gold watch as the timer for his bombs, and they basically start searching the records of cops, and essentially they find out that this guy used to be a cop. And because Harry's seen his face, he knows what he looks like. And so they find out that it is Howard Payne, who happens to have a property quite close by. And so Harry and a team of, I assume they're SWAT rather than LAPD.
I'm not sure. I don't remember. I think all their vests just said LAPD, but I think they're like a TAC team.
Okay. Yeah. Because I'm not really kind of 100% on obviously what the police department do and what they would get something like a SWAT team to do, because obviously it's different here. So
SWAT is like a lot more serious. I feel like SWAT would be more if they were going after like a group of people, but because it's just the one person, they just put together a tactical team of police officers because they're trained to take down one man, and they obviously had no idea that his house was going to be rigged.
Yeah, because it is kind of a little bit rigged with kind of a couple of bombs.
I feel like several bombs.
I mean, the explosion is quite big.
Yeah.
And again, this movie does amazingly well with explosions. I mean, they are huge. They are, excuse the pun, but they are bombastic, in their excellence. I mean, this is particularly heartbreaking because up until this point, Harry has been kind of the faithful companion.
Yeah.
He's obviously been injured in duty, so he's kind of on desk duty while he's recovering, and he's kind of the bit of the brains behind the operation, whereas obviously Jack's more of the brawn,
the action
of the operation.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the best looking brawn, so yeah. So obviously Harry realises who he is, and Payne is one step ahead, as he always is, and yeah, that we say goodbye to Harry and the rest of the tactical team. And one thing that I really do like is that throughout the film, Jack is very focused. Jack is very professional. He does care for the people on the bus, especially Annie, but he always maintains this kind of professional facade.
Yeah.
He's there to help them. He's there to guide them. He's there to be like this sort of strong leading figure to, get these people off eventually. And as soon as he finds out that Harry is gone, he kind of breaks down, and you see just the frustration and the anger kind of just pour out of this man. And he starts, basically trying to break stuff, and he gets a little bit out of control. But I really like that because it humanises him.
Absolutely.
To the point that you understand he's just lost his best friend and his partner. This man is not only targeting innocent civilians, he's also kind of now going for these cops.
Yeah, I mean, it's like just a game to him. Like, he's just playing a game, and it's legitimately hurting other people.
Yeah, and it's like he has this vendetta now against these two police officers who stopped him the first time. So now he's got rid of Harry, and Jack is quite rightly beside himself, and it's Annie who has to kind of calm him down, and she's the kind of the voice of reason in the fact that we need you, Jack, we need you to be strong for us,
right?
And I think a lot of action movies kind of forego that kind of character development. They kind of forego that humanizing of the characters because it's all about the action. And you mentioned earlier Michael Bay, and he's kind of quite famous for, if you've got a good looking woman in a tight shirt and you've got some explosions going off and some CGI somewhere else, then that's what the people want. But when you've got characters like this who you're so in tune with and you can empathize with and you can understand what they're going through, and you've got the action and you've got the chemistry, it's kind of a really, really beautiful little package.
It's a much richer experience than just like, I mean, I love the explosions as much as the next person, but I want to care about the people who are being blown up. And that's, I think, what this movie does so well, because I care that Harry's dead. I care that, Helen's dead. I care that Jack cares about Harry. It's like, it's very, it's just you're right about the humanizing. It's so much better than just wall to wall action with no character moments.
Yeah, and it's just, I love this film so much. I feel like I know that there are some things about it that we've mentioned that aren't 100% what we would want out of a movie like this, but I mean, just generally as a package, as an entity in itself, it's so good, and it's still so good today, and that is phenomenal. So many action films kind of feel a bit stale.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
But if you can say after 25 years that an action film still makes you feel the way this makes you feel, it's just, I mean, like, wow.
Yeah, because that's the thing too, is, you know, I mentioned a couple others earlier, the Terminator and Die Hard and things like that.
Yeah.
Those are, you know, and part of it has to be the script and part of it has to be the actors and stuff, but it's also the action on all of those things are just as good today as they were at the time. And I think
Absolutely.
It takes you know, it's easy to do that with dramas, and it's, you know, a little harder to do that with comedies, but I think it's really hard to do that with action movies. And I think there's a reason why there's these certain action movies that stand the test of time, and it's because they have all of the elements. They have the action, and they have the human moments, they have a little bit of humor, they have the good action, but it's not the only thing they have going for them. And that's why, you know, the Transformers movies are not going to stand the test of time.
No.
Except for maybe Bumblebee. It was actually quite good.
See, I've not seen Bumblebee, but I really want to. And I've actually just noticed, I went to the supermarket earlier and I noticed it's come out on DVD and Blu-ray here now. Yeah. So, there is a possibility that I will be watching that very soon, because I have heard brilliant things. And I wasn't convinced that it was going to be good, but I'm kind of one of these people where if I feel like I really want to see something, I'll go to the cinema to see it. But if it's something that I think, I'm not sure, I kind of wait a little bit, and I like to hear people's opinions.
Yeah.
And generally, I feel like the opinions on Bumblebee have been very positive.
It was
sort of everything.
It was cute.
I've heard has been great.
Yeah.
I think we've missed about when Jack gets off the bus and he goes on the little wheel sledge thing to go underneath.
Yeah.
Which is one of the best scenes in the whole film, because it's so tense.
It's very tense.
And the fact that Keanu Reeves went under a bus, I mean,
that takes some, you know what, I will quote Ortiz, that takes some big cojones.
I know, it really does.
I wouldn't do it.
No, I don't think anyone would. And I kind of feel like that, it just kind of summarises the levels that Jack is willing to go to try and diffuse this. Because obviously, at this point, Harry is still alive, because we have missed a bit.
Yeah.
Because Harry's actually the one who guides him through diffusing the bomb. They see the watch. They discover that, unfortunately, it's too complicated. They can't diffuse it. So they have to go back to the drawing board. And then, obviously, they have an issue with the cable on the little sledge thing. And it starts to, it's horrible, but it starts to like weave left and right, which it's just thinking about it just makes me, oh God, you're under a bus and you think the little sledge that you're on is starting to move left and right. And you're like, oh my God, there are tyres there. Oh my God. Obviously then he manages to kind of grab the underside of the bus and sort of hold himself there. And I mean, his abs must be doing some serious work.
Yeah, and and
his arms.
That's a good moment for his arms too. Again, just to bring the conversation back to Keanu Reeves' arms.
They are some fine looking arms. And then obviously Ortiz, who's obviously a big strapping man. They manage to get the access panel up, and Ortiz manages to get Jack up, and it's then that obviously Harry then gets killed and Jack. So obviously at this point they're at the lowest low because they can't defuse the bomb. Harry is dead. They're trapped on a bus,
and there's a hole in the gas tank.
and yes, of course they're leaking. Forgot about that. They're leaking fuel. So everything is going south for them. And then I was going to say Harry, but he's dead. Jack realizes that there's a camera on the bus, and that's how Payne knows what's going on, because he can see the feed from the bus on one of his many, many television screens. So yeah, and it's quite ingenious actually, because the whole kind of recording the video on loop to then kind of feed it back to the feed that's going to Payne to get the passengers off is actually kind of a good idea.
It's a very good idea, if only that dumb woman hadn't moved her purse.
The thing is, I know that they only ended up getting a minute's worth of footage, because at that point they had hardly any fuel. So it's like, you've got to take what you can. And he explicitly said, right, just look ahead, don't move. They're gonna record some footage, and everyone is completely still apart from one woman.
Right in the front too. She's not even in the back.
I know. And you're like, come on, lady. But yeah, so obviously that's how Payne eventually realises that they've tricked him, which is cool, because that's the first time in the movie he's not been ahead.
And he's also so behind the times, because they have already blown up the bus and an airplane.
Yes,
and he's like trying to push the button, and it's like, girl, we've been past that. You don't do that anymore.
I know, but the other great thing is that obviously with them going to the airport, the helicopters that are filming can't follow because it's restricted airspace. Yeah. So again, another fantastic reason why, if you're stuck on a speeding bus that can't go below 50, you go to an airport because you can't be filmed. It's honestly, the little things in this film just kind of add up to some genius writing. Yeah. I mean, it's genuinely brilliant. Obviously, they managed to get the passengers off because the video is being looped. So until Payne sees the stupid woman, and the bit that I love the most is Annie getting on the access panel and then Jack getting beside her, and they've obviously looped some cable or something around the steering wheel, and they've put
it's like a pipe to hold the gas down,
on the gas pedal, and and then they managed to get off, and it's such a great scene because it's obviously full of action, and then you kind of get them kind of on this panel, and they kind of end up at the end, and it's just
that's honestly
really
that's one of my favorite shots in the whole movie, when they are rolling down the tarmac, the two of them on the access panel, because it spins them around, and it's just such a weirdly beautiful shot in the middle of this really kind of like workman style movie. And I think that's another thing about Jan de Bont being a cinematographer, where I think he probably tried to get that on purpose. It just looks so graceful and strangely beautiful in this movie, and I love that moment so much. And then last night when we were watching it, we got to that point, and I was like, oh shoot, I was like, this movie still has like half an hour left. I like always forget about the end. I'm always like, they got off the bus, yay, that's it. And I was like, oh no, there's like a whole other thing.
Yeah, because it's like, you kind of feel like, oh my god, I can finally relax now. Because the bus has exploded into a plane, which apparently is cut out of a lot of showings. Oh. Because of the sensitivity of planes blowing up.
Interesting.
I assume. I was actually told that by the guys at FlixPod, because he mentioned to me about how much he loved the movie Speed, and Jeff specifically said that this particular one scene is cut out of. It's not cut out of all copies. I think it's probably only copies that are shown at certain times, like, or certain places, like maybe planes, for example.
I was gonna say, is it because of 9/11 or just because of whatever? Just because it's a plane?
I think it's just because it's a plane, maybe. But I think obviously post 9/11, I think that there has been a lot of sensitive material such as this that has been removed from.
Because that's what I was going to say.
Certain media.
If you're on a bus that has to go over 50 now, you are not going to be able to get into an airplane tarmac, just so you know.
Oh, of course. Yeah, because
it's not going to work anymore like it did in 1994.
Yeah. So basically what we're saying is, if you are stuck on a bus doing 50, then you're kind of screwed. Yeah. Because, you can't.
Tuck and roll. Tuck and roll out the window.
I mean, because the security at airports now is so much different to how it was in like 1993 or 94. So, I didn't even think of that when I was saying it earlier. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Because, the bus... So the bus is gone, but as you mentioned earlier, Payne doesn't know because he's just seeing this video on loop, so he just thinks, oh yeah, they're still standing there. He doesn't. It's weird because you would think for an intelligent man, he would think, well, why have they not moved for 20 minutes?
Right.
They're just like still. Jack's still got like his arm up, like looking straight ahead, and they're not talking. You'd think he'd pick something up, but he doesn't. He just picks up the purse, moving.
Yeah.
And they obviously, because they want to keep up the pretense that they are going to drop the money, they go to the money drop, which is just like a garbage bin sort of located on the corner of somewhere, and the money gets dropped, and Payne then obviously realizes that
there are snipers everywhere.
There are snipers. He's been busted. The recording's on loop. He gets angry. He's like, oh no, my plan's been foiled.
I do want to say this is some of the most wonderful scenery chewing of any performance I've ever seen. Dennis Hopper is so fun in this movie as the villain.
He really is.
Wonderful.
And I kind of feel a bit sad because we've not really mentioned him at all, because we've all been like, oh, Sandra's so pretty, and oh, Keanu's so pretty. I mean, Dennis Hopper isn't pretty. He was.
He was handsome,
I mean, in his younger days, he was lovely. But him as a villain, like you say, he's very scenery chewing. He's very kind of, he loves his monologues.
Yes,
I love a good villain monologue.
Who doesn't?
I mean, it's a very kind of villainy thing to do, to explain what you're going to do to someone before you do it. I think he's especially menacing in this film, and I think because, at the end, obviously, when he's dressed as a police officer, and Annie very stupidly gets out of the ambulance because obviously you would get out of the ambulance, and she sees a friendly police officer, and obviously he can easily portray that kind of friendly cop. Oh,
yeah, he's very charming.
Get out of the way. Yeah. And I kind of feel a little bit like the character has the kind of scariest thing about a villain is when a villain isn't just a villain. When a villain can have those multiple layers of being a good guy and showing a different facade to different people, I think makes an exceptionally good villain. And a villain who's got a purpose. And obviously we know that Payne's purpose is the money. Yeah. And he's very outwardly, if people get killed along the way, he's kind of like, well, so be it. People get killed. Right. But I want my money. So he's got an agenda. He doesn't have any real, affinity to any particular human life or anything like that. We don't really know that much about him. But we do know that he can kind of put on that face of being a friendly police officer. Oh, miss, let me help you. And you can fully understand how someone like Annie, who's just been through a very traumatic experience,
and she thinks it's over.
Exactly, she thinks it's over. Would see a police officer, because the thing is the audience know that it's Howard Payne, but from the character's point of view, if you see a police officer and they tell you to do something,
you generally do. Yeah,
of course you will. And if he's saying to her, "Come with me, miss, Jack's told me to take care of you," of course she's going to do it. And I kind of feel like that is what we would expect Annie to do. We wouldn't expect Annie to question a police officer.
Right.
So from that point of view, although I agree with you that, it was a stupid thing for her to get out of the ambulance, she should have just stayed in there, I can understand why she would have gone with him.
Right.
From, just from the point of view that the experience she's been through, Jack's a police officer. This man's knows Jack because he mentions him by name. Okay, yeah, I'll go with you. But obviously that was a bit of a big mistake. So the money is dropped, and I don't know how he managed to cut through the floor of the pavement.
I think he had done it already.
Yeah, but I don't understand, like, how would you do that without being noticed?
I have that I have no idea.
I mean,
except for that Los Angeles is friggin' weird. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, there is no traffic in this version of Los Angeles.
That's true.
So there was obviously no one around, no bystanders. He could just drill down, get into the sewers, get the money.
It's sort of one of those things where you have to be like, this is an alternate version of Los Angeles. Like, this is an alternate universe Los Angeles.
Yeah, it does kind of feel a little bit like that, doesn't it? So, yeah, the money is dropped. He goes, so he's in the sewers. He manages to collect his money. And Annie's obviously captured by him. And we realise, well, Jack realises that she's gone. Mm-hmm. And so he tries to find her, and he finds her. Well, at first, he thinks that she's Payne because she's obviously wearing this bomb vest. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know how you wouldn't be able to mistake a man from a woman from behind.
Well, that's when my husband and I were watching last night. He goes, yes, he's so surprised because Dennis Hopper and Sandra Bullock have just the same silhouette from the back.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the hair is identical, the body shape, the clothes, you know. Yeah, identical. But yeah, so, and then he's obviously devastated because he realises that she is wearing a bomb vest and that Payne has like a mobile trigger, which we learn later on that he can detonate from anywhere. So he doesn't even need to be next to Annie to detonate the bomb vest.
Just like a coward.
Well, exactly, you know, and that's the thing, you know, this guy, he wants this money. He is a coward because you would kind of think that if someone was so badly wanted to get something done, that they would actually see it through. You know, I kind of feel like there's, obviously I know you and Will have spoken about Game of Thrones in some detail, but one of the things that I love about season 1, specifically of Game of Thrones, is the mantra that Ned Stark has, that, you know, I can't remember it verbatim, but it's something like...
the man who issues the sentence should be the one that carries it out?
Yes. Yeah. Which I kind of feel like it's something that they call back to quite a few times on Game of Thrones, that you should, if you're going to issue that sentence and issue that person to death, you should be man enough to carry it out. And I kind of feel like that a little bit here, because Howard Payne's obviously got his money, so he obviously doesn't really care about anything other than. But yeah, I kind of feel like if he really wants to cause this man particular aggro, then he should just be kind of man enough to do it there and then.
Yeah.
But the point is, you're absolutely right. He's a coward.
Well, and it's, I mean, on the one hand, you know, you understand where it's like he finally got his money. He's not going to kill himself. And because he's not just an agent of chaos. He is looking out for himself. But at the same time, it's like it's almost like the terror that he's causing is more important than if he were actually to kill somebody. And which makes him even more scary. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're right. So then we have so basically we've had a bus that's out of control and has to be over 50 or it blows up. And so now they were like, well, what else can we do? I know, let's go on a subway train. You know, that famous Los Angeles subway. I think it only has 2 lines.
Do you know, I didn't even think, because obviously when I went to LA, I didn't even know there was one, because the New York subway is so famous. I mean, and obviously I've never been to New York, but New York seems to me to be the sort of city that's got a great sort of public transportation. So you've got obviously a subway, and
yeah, I'd say it's probably the best in America, but that's not saying a lot.
Oh, okay. But like because obviously I've always, anyone who's ever been to New York has said to me, you know, don't bother getting a car if you're in New York.
Oh, definitely, yeah, that's
just
correct.
Get a cab, or get the subway, but obviously in LA, pretty much everyone I think drives.
Yes, yeah.
So I didn't even know there was. So this was like my first experience of a subway in LA, and it apparently isn't even that long.
I don't know how much like distance it spans, but I think it's only 2 or 3 different lines, like 2 or 3 different directions.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not even as big as the one in DC, and that one's not very big either.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, I didn't even know that. So I'm learning all sorts of stuff about America. This is the sort of stuff I wanted the Fresh Prince to teach me.
Well, there you go. That was taking place in Beverly Hills. They all have their own cars too.
Yeah, so they decide, well, we want to do something else fast, and so let's go on a subway train and let's shoot the driver, because the driver is obviously trying to call for help. So Payne's going to shoot him, and also in doing so is going to shoot the panel that controls the control panel. That's what it's called, the control panel. And obviously the train is then going to go out of control. Because why not? Because we've just sat through the whole elevator thing on the bus, on the freeway, in the airport, getting people off, and you would think that the film would want you to relax, but oh no, it's gonna try and ramp up the tension again.
It's just I think it's such a good use of tension too, though, because it does keep getting more intense, where it's like the elevator is pretty intense, the bus is more intense, and then the subway car is the most intense, especially because there's that moment where they have accepted the fact that they will die. Like, they both think they're going to die, and they don't, but like, he just is like, we have to try to get as few people killed with this as possible. We can't slow down. Maybe if we speed up, it'll be like, we'll be able to do something different. And it's like kind of a dumb idea, but it ends up working. Yeah.
Well, I think that obviously you mentioned earlier about because we didn't actually talk about the jumping the freeway gap, which obviously it's never going to happen in real life. That bus is going to fall all the way down and then blow up in real life.
Yep.
But obviously the whole point of the subway train is to make it go fast until it reaches the end of the line. But before that, obviously, Payne and Jack have a fight on top of the train, which, again, really great to ramp up the tension, because they're essentially fighting and like going under bridges and all sorts. And the Payne eventually loses his head, which
quite literally,
which I kind of feel like there was no other way, that because obviously at that point Jack manages to get hold of the remote, because I kind of feel like if he couldn't have shot him because his gun had fallen, so he couldn't have shot him. Obviously punching him wasn't going to do anything, and he couldn't risk Payne letting go of the remote. So he just kind of holds him up and holds the remote, and it's quite a gruesome way to go.
Yeah, it's pretty gross, but it's so good and it's so perfect for the movie. He had to die. There was no taking him into custody, He had to die.
Yeah, no, there really wasn't. And also we have to, because obviously the reason why Payne is so upset at this point is that he realizes the money is tainted.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he gets splattered in the face with a dye pack. I love it.
Yeah. So he is pissed. He's lost his money, he's lost his bus, he's basically lost all leverage. So as you mentioned earlier, he kidnaps Annie. Jack won't shoot her, so he ends up handcuffing her to part of the subway. So obviously they accept their fate, but I love the scene where he is trying so desperately to get the cuffs off.
He's kicking the subway pole, trying to get it loose. It's tragic, but it's also so hot.
It really is. It's heartbreaking. And I think the music in this movie is so good.
I was going to mention the score. It is one of the better action scores, for sure.
It's so wonderful. And it's still, you know, as soon as you kind of hear that kind of dun 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 dun, it's just like, oh my god, you know, this is so exciting. And then the score in this scene in particular is it's a heartbreaking score. It's just, you know, you realise that there is nothing that he can do to free her, and that they are basically travelling to the end of the line, and they essentially end up kind of in an embrace sort of at the end, and it's so well done. I absolutely love it. You know, when they're like, right, we're just gonna speed up, and we're just gonna see where we end up, and we're just gonna be together whatever happens. And when the subway train kind of comes through the construction sign, it's just one of the greatest shots. It's just honestly, it's so I still don't know how they did that because it's a physical train kind of coming out and then skidding across the street, and it hits that sort of slightly hits a van, and I'm like, how did they do that? Like, how do you calculate this? I mean, obviously there is someone very clever who's calculating the speed and the velocity that it needs to travel to. I mean, it's just wow, it's so good. I love the end. I think the end is just
it is then, it definitely does wrap up one of the best in some of the best like fashion of an action movie, because again, those other ones that we talked about, Die Hard and the Terminator, those all have sequels. This does have a sequel, but it is not really recognized,
but it's crap. And that's the thing. And also, Speed 2 could easily just be called Annie and what's his face go on a cruise.
It could also just be called Cruise Control and not even be the same characters. Yeah, it could have been like a direct-to-DVD, like, try to rip off Speed movie.
Yeah, like you get nowadays with like Transmorphers and that sort of thing, where you're trying to rip off something that's popular. Because, I mean, it's not a good movie anyway, but I kind of feel like the association to Speed does it no favours.
Right. Because
Speed is so good, and it's almost incomparable, you know, the two movies. Because if, like you say, if it was just called Cruise Control and it was just happened to star Sandra Bullock, then I think people could probably give it a bit more of a pass.
Yeah.
As just a bit of a mediocre action movie that just happens to be set on a boat.
Yeah, for sure.
But the fact it's got the association to this movie makes it so really utterly rubbish.
It's damned by comparison. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But as we know, you know, a relationship based on sex, you know, is preferable to a relationship that comes from an intense psychological experience,
sure,
or whatever. And to be honest, I'm not going to lie, if I had the option for any relationship with Keanu Reeves, I don't care what it is.
Yeah, no.
I'm going to say yes.
Absolutely. Keanu Reeves then, Keanu Reeves now, any Keanu Reeves.
Any Keanu. I mean, even Dracula Keanu.
He's still handsome.
I'm not going to say no.
He's also a lawyer in that.
Yeah, he's a lawyer. He's he's attempting a British accent. He's not great. Maybe I could teach him. I'd be more than happy to give him some English, you know, dialogue lessons if he wants to come round, and we can have a coffee, and he can talk to me, and he can show me his muscles, and I will
just be like, can I just look at your arms? Like, we don't need to talk. Let's just take the arms out. Let's see the arms.
I mean, obviously, I will teach him how to speak in the accent, and he will be very grateful to me.
Sure.
And he will obviously want to make it up to me, and I will go, that's okay, just you being here, Keanu, is enough for me.
Just you and your arms in the same room as me. It's plenty.
But however, if you want that relationship based on sex,
I'm down for that too.
I'm not going to say
no.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, that was Speed, and
many other things. Yeah.
And many other things. Oh my God, we are past the 3-hour mark,
and we talked for like 40 minutes before we even started recording.
Yeah. So let's quickly kind of go through, because I've got some, obviously I asked on social media for any kind of thoughts or comments on Speed, and I got a few, and overwhelmingly people love this movie, which isn't a surprise because it's really, really good. So my friend Claudia mentioned on Facebook, she said, I was living in LA with my dad when the film was released, and it was a joke to us how clear the highways looked in the film. Also, the clueless tourist. He reminded me of some travel companions in Europe. I mean, I guess some tourists are a bit clueless when they visit places, but yeah, we've mentioned the highways and how ridiculously empty they are, and yeah, then they really are. I had a comment on Instagram from Vegemorph. He said, definitely an underrated classic, a lot of fun and thrilling action sequences, and just enough character and charisma from Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock to put you in character-wise. I'm surprised it's not talked about more these days, especially with Reeves doing so well with the John Wick movies. Well, that's why we're talking about it now, because it's so great, and he's so great in John Wick. And, I mean, he's kind of great in most things, so I kind of feel like he is very underrated. But
yeah, I think early on he got a couple of things that were not quite right for him, like you know, he was in the Kenneth Branagh version of Much Ado About Nothing, and he was in Dracula, and there was something else that I can't remember that he's not very well cast in, but Dangerous Liaisons, that's the one. And so it's like, I feel like for some reason people still think of what he did in the late 80s and early 90s and the way he was miscast in a couple of things because he was kind of an it guy. And I think they still think of that as opposed to all the things he's done that he's really good at.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
I know. And I kind of feel as well that he does have, at the moment, and obviously based on Speed, he has this kind of action persona, but he's also been in some actually quite good romantic comedies. He's obviously great at comedy, because I have such a fondness for Bill and Ted, and I'm so excited that Bill and Ted are coming back. And because obviously I grew up with those movies, and they were kind of, again, so linked to like my childhood, I do kind of feel a little bit like I really hope it's good, and I kind of feel like it will be. But I'm also a little bit worried about the next Bill and Ted.
Yeah, it could go either way.
But yeah, but I kind of feel like that's not going to be Keanu's fault.
No, and at this point, honestly, I think people are going to love it just because it's nostalgic. Even if the story's kind of crap, I think they won't. I think it'll just be fun. I think people will just have fun with it.
Yeah, I think so. And it's certainly one that I'm going to be watching, you know, straight away because I'm so in anticipation for it. I had some further comments on Twitter. So at Day's Podcast said, no way that bus made the jump. I mean, yeah, it definitely didn't make the jump. But it's, I guess, artistic license. So, and it looks cool. I mean, it looks really cool when it kind of comes up off the ramp and it's all slow motion. It does look so cool. At Geek Salad Radio said, Speed is an interesting movie. It's an action movie with very little action and an incredibly low body count. What makes it great is the tension created by its runaway train premise. I think, well, it's a runaway. I think maybe he means bus, but it's train as well. Sandra Bullock earned her star turn as Annie was the surrogate for the viewer, which I think is a fair comment, because we are seeing everything through Annie's eyes, and she really does earn it. Her career has blown
absolutely
up,
yeah,
excuse the pun, since this movie, and this movie was her breakout role, and she, like I say, she's someone who I absolutely adore. Just generally, I think she is a wonderful person, and I think she's lovely, and obviously when I'm giving Keanu these English lessons, that's not the right phrase.
You're going to be his dialect coach.
Yes, that's what I mean. Obviously, the man speaks English. But yeah, when I'm giving him when I'm being his dialect coach, Sandra is more than welcome to also come round and have a conversation with us, and I am up for being her best friend anytime she wants. So, show me the podcast at SMTPcast. This is Lorraine. She says, I love Speed. I think I saw it on the big screen. I remember it being huge at the time, especially with Keanu coming off the back of Point Break, Bill and Ted, and My Own Private Idaho. Of course, it put Sandra Bullock on the map. Plus, I dated his double when I lived in the US.
Oh my gosh.
Lorraine, I think we need to talk about this double of Keanu. And I think we also need to know his name, his address, his phone number, his vital
Is he single now?
Is he single? If so, we can be available. At the Flicks Pod said, I saw it when it first came out and was really impressed by its pacing, tension and wonderful villain turn from Dennis Hopper. I saw it a month later on a journey to America and was amused that they had cut the airport explosion scene out of the plane print. Which is obviously what I mentioned earlier when Jeff mentioned that specifically to me. At Phil the Bear said, Speed definitely sits up there as an action classic with the likes of Die Hard. Still devastated every time Harry goes to check out the bomber's home. Love that Keanu has brought us Jack Traven, Johnny Utah, Neo and John Wick, an action god. I mean, he really is though.
He really is.
He's so good at it as well. I mean, I know that we kind of keep repeating ourselves on it, but he really is.
Well, I made a comment when we talked about John Wick on our show, and he's up there for me with Tom Cruise for action, who's like Tom Cruise and like, you know, Matt Damon with the Bourne movies and stuff. But to me, John Wick next to Ethan from Mission Impossible, I just find John Wick and Keanu Reeves so much more interesting, and there's such a more like alive feeling to the action than it feels so regimented in Mission Impossible, and I think it just feels so much more real in John Wick. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, no, and I think as well, kind of going back to the way Keanu has this habit of really humanising the character. And I feel like this is just, I might as well just call this the Keanu Reeves
episode.
Yeah, it's just all about him. And a little bit of Sandra.
Keanu Reeves, where we talk about Speed a little bit.
I mean, we're post the 3 hour mark. I would say we've probably 3 hours on Keanu, 20 minutes on Speed. I think that's kind of where we're at the moment. But who cares? I'm just really happy that now my episode average is dramatically higher, thanks to 3+ hours of talking to you.
I'm happy to be the outlier.
I mean, not only are you the first guest I've ever had, you're also literally the record now that I have to beat for guests going forward.
Just have Sade on. I know you guys talked about Avengers for like 3 hours.
Well, I mean, that's interesting that you say that, because she might be the next person coming on.
No! What a good guess I made by accident.
I know. I've just got one final Twitter comment because I don't want to miss anyone. At Hugo's Post said, crazy thing about that movie is that traffic would have prevented that bus from going 55 miles and over most places. Love the movie, but that's a far stretch. It's Keanu and Bullock at their cutest. How can you go wrong? I mean, you can't. It's just, yeah, I don't think you can go wrong. And so I think that might be the end of Speed. Well, and
nice.
We're coming to the end of the episode. I've absolutely loved chatting with you, and
Yay!
You are just as lovely as you come across in your own podcast, which is wonderful.
That's good news.
So obviously, I know we've talked a little bit about your show, and you've mentioned kind of roughly where people can find you, but now you have an opportunity to really plug your show and everything that you and Will do so wonderfully. So feel free to go ahead and plug your show and tell people where they can find you.
Yes, well, we do have a website, soimwatching.com, that does link to everything, so that's probably the easiest way to find everything. But we are also on Twitter, and our handle is @soimwatching. The Instagram handle is @soimwatching the show, and Will puts together really fun, photo albums for all of our episodes every week. So with really funny comments. He's very funny. If you want to follow Will, you should also follow him. He's @Willow719 on Twitter. And other than that, yeah, we're everywhere you can listen to podcasts. We're on iTunes, we're on CastBox, we're on Podcast Republic. We're not on Spotify, but they're very picky about who gets allowed. So that's, I think, the only place that you can't listen to us. But we're pretty much everywhere else.
Cool. And obviously, I would recommend that everyone go and listen to you guys, because I think you guys are wonderful. And like I said, I love the chemistry between you and Will. And I often get a little bit confused because obviously your husband's called Will and your co-star's called Will. And it's always like, so obviously when you say Will's doing this, I'm always a little bit like, which Will does she mean? But I think if it's anything technical, it'll be husband Will. And if it's anything sort of presenter-wise or anything else, it's going to be co-host Will. So
yes, also co-host Will spells his name with only one L.
That's a good way to distinguish between the Wills. So it's been really, really wonderful for you to come on this show and to be my first guest. And honestly, it's been so much fun. And I anticipated it would be long, but I didn't think it would be this long. So,
neither did I.
But I'm so excited to get this out and for people to listen. So
I feel like when you come on our show for a Buffy episode, we're going to actually have to kick Will out. Otherwise, the episode will be 5 hours long. And I don't think husband Will wants to edit 5 hours worth of us squealing about Buffy and Spike.
I mean, it's quite possible that is literally the only thing I'll be doing. I don't like to objectify people on the show, but when someone is incredibly attractive, or I find them incredibly attractive, then I like to say it and to express that. And so I just feel like this particular episode has been a lot about Keanu, but he deserves it because he's just so good looking and brilliant and lovely.
Just look at what he looks like and then you'll understand.
Yeah, exactly.
The key is to be an equal opportunity objectifier. Yeah. You just have to objectify men and women equally, and then it's fine.
Exactly. I think Sandra Bullock is gorgeous. I think she was gorgeous then. She's gorgeous now. She's been gorgeous her whole life. I feel like we're going off on a tangent again. I need to take control of the situation. Like Annie on a speeding bus, I need to take control of the wheel and I need to slow this bus down. And
of course,
obviously, I am so excited to come on your show at some point. Obviously, we've not planned anything because I know your guys' schedule is crazy at the moment and you've got a lot going on. And mine is crazy. Well, probably not as crazy, but but hopefully at some point in the near future we can arrange something and hopefully it'll be Buffy. But yeah, I very much look forward to coming on your show and talking about, to be honest, whatever you want.
Pretty much
anything. I mean,
we will figure out something for you before season 6 of Buffy because it'll be a while before we get there.
Okay.
So we will keep in touch and figure something out.
Sweet. Oh my god.
Keep watching on Twitter to find out what.
Oh my god, I'm so excited. Right. Okay. So, guys, thank you for listening. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Speed. My next episode will be out in 2 weeks, and as Kristin has correctly guessed, my special guest will be Sade from Offscreen Babble. And rather interestingly, the movie that we'll be looking at, Kristin also mentioned in some ways earlier. Oh my god, the anticipation. It's so tense.
What is it?
It's like an episode of Speed. So the movie that Sade and I will be looking at, I mentioned on Twitter that it was a fantasy swashbuckler. It's the movie that reinvented the cursed pirate genre, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl.
Oh my gosh.
So listen up, my hearties, yo-ho. So yeah. So you were kind of right. When you were talking earlier about
the
Keira
chemistry.
Knightley and Orlando Bloom, I was like, oh my god, she's talking about Pirates of the Caribbean. That's my next one. It's so exciting. That's the movie that Sade specifically wanted to talk about. So that's what we're going to talk about. And if you like this episode, I've also done episodes on Titan AE, Captain Marvel, Dread, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow, Pleasantville, and The Cabin in the Woods. And they can all be downloaded wherever you get your podcasts from. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at Verbal Diorama. You can email me general hellos, feedback or suggestions at verbaldiorama@gmail.com. My website is verbaldiorama.com. If you like what I do and you want to give me a great review, you can do so on iTunes, and I'd really appreciate that. Or if you want to buy me a coffee, which, as we've established, honestly, I pretty much run on, you can do so at ko-fi.com/verbaldiorama. So thank you everyone again for listening. See you next time. And listening to Verbal Diorama will get you a tiny pension and a cheap gold watch. Bye.
Bye.